Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 9. And of course, with me tonight, the fabulous Amanda James. Hello.
Hello.
And also joining us are the frogs in Amanda James's backyard. So we're going to enjoy some ambiance while we go through our discussion tonight.
They're singing. It's mating season.
Oh,
Nothing I can
nice.
do.
Yeah, that's even better.
Yeah.
Um, so tonight we wanted to just kind of tie up some loose ends when it comes to Jody's interrogation. We covered it in 8 episodes, about 7 hours worth of an interrogation. Obviously, Detective Flores walked out of there with pretty much nothing. He told Jody she's going back to Phoenix. You're coming with me. But I think overall it was probably a pretty frustrating experience for both of the detectives involved because they're telling her such obvious facts. They're showing her pictures of herself there, even though it wasn't the pictures that she wanted to see, right? She wanted to see all the gruesome photos. She wanted to see Travis.
hmm
But instead, she just saw herself in very compromising positions.
Yeah, it's got to be awkward.
It's got to be awkward. Yeah, definitely. So tonight we just kind of wanted to talk about a couple of things. Now, a couple of videos ago, we had asked people about their own interrogation experiences if they had any. And so we do have a few responses. So we wanted to just talk about them and just have a little bit of a discussion of perhaps what we would think it would be like to be in an interrogation chair. Obviously we just sat through Jody, so she had quite the experience. I think it's interesting to watch different people during an interrogation and the different types of reactions that they will have. Certainly, most of the time when you're seeing something on YouTube, it's someone who's guilty. I don't know that they really have anything out there for somebody who's not. You can correct me if
hmm
I'm wrong there. But I think most of the time they'll release things prior to trial or after a trial has been completed and they kind of put everything out there. So with Jody, we see her basically sitting there. She's kind of, I don't know, a little, I wouldn't say flirtatious necessarily, but at the beginning when she arrived, she's flipping her hair around. She's acting like she's trying to use her female powers on Detective
hmm
Flores. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would go as far to say flirtatious. I remember when the detective first sat down, she leaned in towards him. She sort of leaned across the table towards him and had her arms in such a position that she was kind of like pressing her boobs together. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? When
Yes, I
like
do.
with her elbows up on the table,
Right.
like yeah, and I that is it was just sending signals. And the way he asked her if she remembered him, she said, "Of course I do." In a very flirtatious way. It's a strange thing to say to
Yeah.
a detective that you're talking to about a horrible homicide.
Right.
And it I think it's interesting to watch people being interrogated too. And I have seen just a couple of examples on YouTube of people who were actually innocent or
Okay.
not guilty of the crime they were being committed of.
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed is that they're furious. They're scared because they're being accused of something they didn't do, but they're angry
Mm-hmm.
instead of. I mean, Jody was very calm through the whole thing. I was never there. I wasn't there, detective. I did not go to Mesa. If you really didn't do it, you would be pulling your hair out,
Yeah.
saying, I can't believe you suspect me of this. Absolutely not. I did not do this.
Yeah.
And we did not see that reaction from Jody. But I think one of my favorite lines from Detective Flores during the interrogation was after Jody had relayed the whole story about the two masked people who came in and killed Travis. I think she felt real proud of herself after giving that very convincing story. And the detective just sat back and said, I don't believe you. And he just sounded so defeated. Like,
Yeah.
that's the best you can do, Jody. I don't believe you.
Right. I know. I think he said something like, you have to make it believable.
Yes, He did. Yeah, give me something to work with
I
here. This is
know,
ridiculous.
exactly. Yeah, you're saying
And
you didn't do it and other people did, but listen to this story.
right. And Jody said in court, Jody said something like defending herself almost for coming up with this ridiculously poor um, lie. She said something along the lines of that she was unsophisticated when it came to dealing with law enforcement.
Hmm.
Basically, she was saying, I didn't know how to lie convincingly in an interrogation, and somehow thought that that would make her look better to the jury. Or I think maybe she was embarrassed listening back to that. She was embarrassed of how terrible her story was and how stupid it was. Because I think Jody is very impressed with her own intelligence. She thinks she's a very, very smart woman.
Yes.
And then she had to sit in court and listen to this ridiculous story that she made up and had to come up with a bit of a justification. Like, well, this was my first time lying to the cops. I wasn't, give me a break. I wasn't great at it yet. Now we're at
Right.
trial and I'm a little bit better at lying.
Yeah, this is several years later now, so
Hmm.
I've come up with something a little bit better.
Right. I've
Yeah.
learned a few things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's interesting. Now, so of course, we saw Jody's demeanor too. Even when she was by herself or when she's talking to Detective Blaney, there were many, many times when she just kind of stares off into space and she
Hmm.
doesn't say anything. She has a blank look, even though it's not the clearest picture of her, but she just looks blank. So you have her, and you see that in other places too. I know I've mentioned the Chandler Holgerson case that we haven't gotten to yet, obviously, but his interrogation is the same. He's very monotone, and his demeanor is just flat.
Hmm.
Then, and I was going to look up this person before we started, but I forgot. But there was an interrogation of a man in Florida who got his best friend and I think another person to kill his wife with a hammer. I don't know if that sounds familiar to you at all. She was a doctor.
Yes.
Okay.
Did they call the friend the Hammer?
I
Was that
don't
like his
know.
nickname?
I
I,
have no idea. Yeah, it's possible.
it
That would
might be
make sense.
another story out of
Okay.
Florida. Florida's full of them.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so his interrogation is wild. He's the opposite. He is sitting there at the table, and even when the cops aren't there and he's just by himself, clearly he knows that he's being watched, right? And he's
mhm.
sitting there, why, and he's shaking the table. It's crazy. Um, so if you get a chance, watch that one. I can't remember his name, but you'll be able to find it pretty easily, I think. But it's such
Stephen,
an opposite, huh?
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, did you have the name?
No, I was gonna bring up another example of like Jody just sitting there monotone, just staring
Uh
and not
huh.
speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen McDaniel, I think his name was. I think it was in Texas. I could be wrong about that, but he killed his neighbor. He was in law school, and he killed this really pretty girl, Lauren something. The interrogation is pretty well known because the interrogator has a very heavy Southern accent,
Okay.
and he's trying to get something out of Steven. He says, "Why, Steven? Why?"
Oh,
Like
I
it's
gotcha.
very dramatic and funny.
Sure.
But Steven just sits there with a very robotic voice, just giving one word answers. Yes, no, I don't know, and doesn't move a muscle. It's
Mm-hmm.
very strange. That case is also pretty well known because he actually did an interview with a news station about the missing girl, and he was acting, oh, we have no idea where she is. She's the nicest girl. Yeah,
Yes.
nobody's seen her. And then they said, well, how do you feel about the body that was found in the trash can, or on in the neighborhood here? And he almost fainted because he hadn't learned that they had found the body yet.
Oh, okay.
So
I think I remember that now.
yeah, it's like I said, his name is Stephen McDaniel or McDaniels, one of the
Okay.
two. um, but the interrogation is entertaining for
Right.
sure. So check that one out if you haven't seen it.
Okay. So, we did receive some responses to our question to see if anyone had their own experience and would like to share. So, I'm going to share some of those. So, we received some via email, and then we also received some from comments. So, the first one we received via email, we're not going to disclose who sent this to us, but I will read their email here. I was in the quote unquote chair myself many years ago. No details, but I was patently guilty, and the detective knew it as well as I. Much like what you're seeing with Jody, as well as many of the TCAP interrogations, the interviewer pretended to be my friend, offered help and guidance, and implied that I would receive favorable treatment were I to confess. Unlike these others, I was not under arrest at the time and had not been Mirandized. That being said, it was the most frightening experience of my life, and I wouldn't take $10 million to go through that again. Asking for a lawyer, even without the Miranda warning, crossed my mind more than once. However, when sitting in the chair, your brain tells you that lawyer equals guilty, and that this is all that matters at that moment. You're willing to betray everyone you've ever known if it'll get you out of that room. This was 30 years ago. I'm no longer who I used to be. I was eventually found guilty and served my time. I'm happy to say that I learned my lesson and turned away from my life of drugs and crime. But I will never forget the 2 hours I spent in the interrogation room with that detective, and I'm glad that I will never have to go through with it again. So to add on, they also said, I can tell you that from my story, taking responsibility for my actions and being willing to accept the consequences is what turned my life around. I did my time, got into a substance abuse program, and rebuilt my life from there. This is why it's difficult to sympathize with Jody or even Lauren, because they refuse to take personal responsibility and continue to blame others for their actions. So thank you so much for sending this in. I think this is a great story. And I responded back to them too, saying, I love a redemption story. I think that, clearly with this person, it sounds like they were involved in drugs. They committed some sort of crime, at least one. And they used their time to say, I never want to be here again. I'm the one who put myself here ultimately. And I never want to do this again. So they were able to turn their life around, and for a few decades was able to make that happen. And I think that's really great.
Oh, absolutely. I'm really happy that they were able to turn it around. And I agree. That's the most infuriating thing about Lauren, is that he refuses to take any responsibility, and the same with Jody. There, I did this, but you made me. I only did it because somebody else made me do it.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's very frustrating. And in order to change, you need to accept the truth. If you really don't think you did anything wrong, then what's to stop you from doing it again, except for the threat of being caught? But that just makes you try to be sneakier.
Absolutely. Yep, I agree. And then also with what they were saying about being in the chair and being afraid to ask for a lawyer, because it's that perception of you're guilty if you ask for one. You have something to hide. You're trying to get protection if you're asking for an attorney. And
Yeah,
that's scary too.
yeah, I think if I were in that position, my brain would go there immediately too. Only
Mm-hmm.
guilty people ask for a lawyer. I don't want to look guilty. I want to
Right.
convince them that I'm not. And even though you can't talk your way out of it, you're still going to try to.
Sure. Yeah,
But every
absolutely.
word you say is used against you. Everything. But he said the interrogator sort of acted like he was his friend or their
Mm-hmm.
friend,
Mm-hmm.
and oh, I can help you. They do that to everyone. They did that to Lauren, and his, not to bring up Lauren constantly, but for example, in his interrogation, they said, Mr. Armstrong, you need to talk to us if you want to get this straightened out, if you want to get this sorted. There is no straightening it out in the interrogation room.
No, there
That's not
isn't.
the place for that. If that's
Right.
going to happen, it's going to happen in court.
Yep.
Once you're in that interrogation room, you're you can't say anything, especially without a lawyer, somebody who knows what they're doing.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's got to be so scary. And I know that I used to think the same way too. You know, when I would hear things on the news of somebody was arrested and they asked for an attorney, and I'd be like, "Ooh, you asked for an attorney, huh?"
Hmm.
You know, but I
Yeah.
understand it a lot more now. I would do the same thing. I think if I were ever to have contact with law enforcement immediately, I wouldn't say anything, you
Hmm.
know, because that's way too scary of a situation. You have a lot on the line, and you know, don't forget that that detective may be sitting with you, but there's a whole team that's watching.
Watching. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're bouncing
Yeah.
ideas off of each other. So let's see. So here is the next one. Let's see. Your last video had a question on being in an interrogation situation, which I found myself in 2018. To be upfront, it was financial related, not anything sex offender related. I've seen a lot of these interrogation videos and have noticed that they have a lot of the same traits as the people I've met in prison. A lot of people do believe that they're smarter than everyone else and can talk their way out of anything. When I was interrogated, at first I was careful with what I said. I wanted to know what they knew. It was a game of chess. But I also knew that they had all their pieces and I didn't. When you watch interrogation videos, there comes a point where the interrogator will tell the person what they do know. How you react to that will dictate how things will go for you if an indictment comes. For me, it was too much of a mountain to climb, so it was damage control time. I didn't want to admit guilt unless I was arrested. At the time, it was the initial phase. I knew I wasn't under arrest, so I viewed it as a negotiation of sorts. I wanted to know what they knew, and they wanted to know what I would admit to. At first, I asked a lot of questions. Why am I here? Sort of questions. Obviously, I knew why I was there, but when interrogated, you feel as though you need to gain control. My way of doing it wasn't to deny anything, but to ask the questions. I met with them a few times over the course of a month. Since I wasn't under arrest, there was no indictment yet. However, I knew it was coming. It didn't come for another 6 months, so I was a bit more prepared. The first time was a surprise. I had already retained counsel at this point, so they were careful with what they said since everything can be up in court. There was a definite shift in the procedure and questions they had. Of course, there were a lot of variables. Different investigators, different prosecutors will do things differently. The interesting thing through the whole experience is all the personalities that are similar. I saw a bit of myself in a lot of the other inmates I've met, even with Lauren. I ended up getting a 30-month sentence, federal, and was in Oregon for 13 months and at a halfway house around my home for 4 months. If someone came to me and asked about being questioned by the cops, what would I say? My best advice would be to get an attorney. If you have to speak with them, understand your rights, that you don't have to answer every question. A lot of people, regardless of innocence or guilt, assumed that they're perceived as being guilty if you have an attorney. That's really the hard part. It's the perception. If you're arrested, in the public eye, you're presumed to be guilty. My advice is to fight it out in court with attorneys and a judge and not in the interrogation room.
Ooh, that was a good one.
That was a very good, yeah. I mean, these
Hmm.
are amazing messages. It
Hmm.
provides a lot of insight, you know, because we can only assume what it would be like to be there, and we have a lot of judgments, right, for the people that we see. We
Hmm.
just went through an entire 8 episode series of judging Jody as she's
Yeah.
sitting there. So it does make a lot of sense, everything that's being said. And it's interesting, too, how they pointed out that the cops will change their procedure when there's an attorney involved,
Hmm.
because they're going to be up against someone who's also experienced. So they can shut it down as
Right.
soon as they feel like this isn't going the way that it should. And
Hmm.
that's certainly not something that the police are going to be interested in having happen. They want you to keep talking.
Yeah, it's kind of a tightrope walk for the police because they want to push you far enough to answer their questions, but they don't want you to ask for an attorney to begin
Mm-hmm.
with.
Yeah.
And then when the attorney is is there, they already know which questions the attorney is not going to permit their
Mm-hmm.
client to answer. Um, so yeah, it's interesting that it's compared to a chess game.
Yeah.
And we saw that with Jody during the times when she was just sitting there silently
Mm-hmm.
and refused to really talk. It was so frustrating because I'm like, why don't you just say, I don't want to talk? You don't have to talk to them. They make it clear that you don't have to talk to them. So go back to your damn cell. Why are you wasting everybody's time? But obviously, it was because if she wasn't talking, the detectives were talking, and she
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get as much information as she possibly could about what they do know, so she could form her story around that.
Right. Of course, what comes up when you say that are the photos. She mentioned them many
Hmm.
times. She wanted to see those photos. She wanted to know what they saw so that she could then formulate her story.
Right. I mean, right. And I understand that she was desperate, but talk about perception of guilt, things that
Mm-hmm.
make people perceive you as guilty. She didn't want to ask for a lawyer because I presume she thought it would make her look guilty, and
Mm-hmm.
because she thought she was smarter than the detectives
Mm-hmm.
and could talk her way out of it. But that made her look incredibly guilty that she wanted to see photos of the crime scene
Yeah.
and of Travis's dead body.
Mm-hmm.
Why would an innocent person ever want to see something like that? There's only one reason she wanted to see that, and the
Sure.
detectives knew that, but they
Yeah.
didn't confront her with that. Flores just said, I don't want to show you that. It's too gruesome. I don't show those to people.
Yeah.
He didn't say, I'm not going to show you because I know why you're asking,
Right.
and I'm not going to give you the key to come up with something that could, a lie that could potentially be believable.
Yeah. She wanted to see those desperately though. And I think she just kept
Hmm.
figuring she would ask them enough times maybe and they would say, "Okay, fine. If that's going to
Hmm.
get you to tell us something, then we'll give it to you."
She even said there was one point right before she said, I can tell you everything I know. And she was about to admit what happened. We know that she just went on to give the story of the two intruders, but it was kind of her breaking point, like, okay, I'm going to tell you everything. Can I please see those photos first?
Right. Yeah.
And Flores refused, of course. And then she said, well, can I see them after? She was ready to bargain. Like, I'll give you a little bit of information
Hmm.
and then you show me the pictures and then I'll give you the rest.
Right.
And again, this just makes her look so incredibly guilty.
It does. I know. I know because nobody's going to want to see their loved one, supposedly in that type of a position. She already knows that he's dead.
Yeah, and Flora, she knew that he had been dead for several days
Hmm.
before they found him. That
Right.
cannot be a pretty picture.
No, definitely not. I mean, we saw them,
Right.
right? They're
Yeah, it was
they're
horrible.
awful. Yeah. But also the way that he's explaining too. This is a very bloody crime scene. But
Hmm.
you're not going to want to see this. This is too much. I mean, it's not like, how sometimes you can have somebody who's grieving very badly and they need to see to believe. This
Hmm.
is not that. This is a month later um, when she's being asked, this, and clearly they already know. They already have enough background on her to to know that they're talking to their suspect right here, and there's nobody else that they need to look for.
I I assume Travis's um like funeral was closed casket. I mean, it must have been. He had been dead for several days.
Hmm.
And his throat was cut, so I'm sure they didn't have like a viewing of the body. I mean, because that's the purpose of that tradition, right? It's for people to
Hmm.
get closure who need it
Sure,
to
sure,
see the
absolutely.
body.
Yeah.
But I know Jody made it to one of the services, the memorial service, maybe.
Hmm.
She only made it to one of them. Um, but I mean, if she was going to go for that sort of, I just need the closure. And she did, as a matter of fact, she did tell the detective that she wanted to see the pictures for closure.
Yes, she
And she
did.
probably would have tried harder to get to his funeral.
Right.
that's that's what it's for. So
Yeah,
you don't need to see
exactly.
gruesome, bloody pictures
Sure,
for
absolutely.
closure.
Yeah. I think she said that someone who was close to him had to dress him.
Oh God.
I think. I could be wrong on that, but I do think that they did. And perhaps that's something that goes along with their religion too.
Hmm.
But yeah, he had to take care of that, and that must have been awful.
Awful, especially
Yeah.
because it wasn't a death from a natural cause
Sure. Yeah,
or something. It
absolutely. Mhm.
He was covered in injuries.
Mhm.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, it was
Yeah.
awful.
So then we also received some in the comments. So I'm going to read those. And since they were publicly put out there, we'll just mention who they were from. So this is Dupuis fashion consultant. And they say, I was interrogated when I was younger for a crime that I was guilty of, nothing major. And also, when I was younger, I was interrogated for something I didn't do. And after trying for a bit, they cleared me. Again, nothing serious. I've known interrogation techniques for a while, but when watching from the outside, it's so much different when it happens in person. There is definitely a reason why they use techniques that are well documented at this point. It actually helps them more because people think that since they've seen interrogation techniques, they'll be able to talk themselves out of it. So I think that's another excellent point of where maybe somebody's going to be like, oh, yeah, you know what? I've seen many of these on YouTube. I know
Hmm.
what you're doing. I know the read technique up and down.
Yeah, I heard something about that. Either I can't remember if I read it or I don't know. I heard it somewhere that even trained interrogators, when they are put to the same interrogation, even though they know the purpose of all the questions, they know the technique, they'll still sort of fall for it. Like
Hmm.
it still works on them, even though they know it. It's just the I don't know the certain reactions that you give that they're trained to look out for.
Hmm.
They're almost not involuntary, but and certainly not impossible. But it's very difficult to uh, to not respond um, naturally to these kinds of the questions that they ask with the technique. Like
Sure.
they work, even if you know that they're doing it to you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying. Kind of like there's, I guess they would call them self soothing um, things that people will do, whether that's kind
Hmm.
of like rock back and forth or they'll touch their face in a certain way or, that type of thing, um, where you can kind of watch them and see what they're doing. And those types of things would be things that they're not even conscious of doing
Right.
necessarily. So, yeah. Um,
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. You
mhm,
unconsciously react in a certain way, even
mhm.
if you know you shouldn't react that way.
Yeah, and it is interesting too how you mentioned people who are in those positions. That you hear all the time. They'll have them right in the title: police chief interrogated,
Hmm.
sergeant interrogated, and the other thing too. They don't ask for attorneys.
Right. I know. You think that they of all people would know that that's rule number one, but again, just like the previous comment said, you you're afraid of being perceived as guilty. Guilty people ask for an attorney, and you'll do anything in that moment to not appear guilty.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. So they even know, even though it's what they should be doing.
Hmm.
They even know if I ask for an attorney, they're going to know that something's up. So that is a
Hmm.
difficult one to handle.
Well, and it's like when the interrogator they tell you at the beginning of the interrogation, if I ask you a question and you don't want to answer it, you don't have to answer it. But then if somebody refuses to answer a question, the the detective will ask, well, why? Why won't you answer that
Yeah,
question?
yeah,
So, yeah, you have the option to not answer, but again, it's going to go along with the perception of guilt.
yeah. And the detective is certainly going to be reacting in a certain way too. Well, I guess you don't want to help yourself then.
Hmm.
You
Yes.
know, I'm in here trying to help you. Because at some point, and I think Detective Flores said it's going to go in front of a judge and a jury.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot where they sort of give the impression like you're running out of time.
Yeah.
You need to tell me now
Mm-hmm.
because you're not going to have the opportunity to in the future, which
Yeah.
I don't think is true at all. I think Jody could have gone back to her cell and waited a month and then said, I want to talk to Detective Flores, and he still
Mm-hmm.
would have talked to
Oh,
her.
definitely. Yeah.
But you feel like you're on a time crunch. You're running out of time. I got to come up with something now. I've got to get out of this room. My time's running out. Um, and they remind you this is going to go in front of a judge. How is a jury going to think of this? You need to
Mm-hmm.
be aware of that. People are going to be judging you, so act accordingly.
Right.
And they're going to have so much more, they're going to be so much more lenient and have more sympathy if you're honest, which is true. I do think that is true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Nobody likes a
it
liar.
certainly can be. No, nobody likes a liar. And it's interesting how they'll usually say, I can go to bat for you if you do
Hmm.
this. And I can't, I can't think now. I haven't watched every trial, of course, and to see
Hmm.
every detective on the stand, but I've never seen somebody come up because they're working for the state. So they're
Yeah.
not going to be like, oh, yeah, this person was truthful and they were honest. So let's cut them a little bit of a break.
No. I've seen, actually, I have a specific interrogation and trial in mind that I've
Mm,
watched many times. I can't remember their names, which I should because I've
okay.
actually, give me one sec.
Okay.
Um, Daniel, oh shit, I can't remember, but it's a couple. They were addicted to meth and they had a newborn baby.
Oh, yes.
Um,
I know who you're talking
the
about.
Yeah, I wish the name's like on the tip of my tongue. But they killed the baby, or the wife did, and then they put the baby's body into a well.
Mm-hmm.
And during the interrogation, it was a female detective. She was brilliant. Um, she was doing the whole, I want to help you. I want to help you. Tell me where that baby is so we can get him home and I can help you. And I will tell the judge that you were honest and you helped me because you wanted to bring that baby home. You were being a good dad.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know he killed the baby and threw him in a well.
Yeah.
He was not being a good dad. He lied to her, but eventually he was honest. And when she went into court, she said the same thing. I will go to bat for you in front of this judge. I'll tell him that you told me the truth. He
Mm-hmm.
eventually did. But in court, when she testified, she did not go to bat for him at all.
No, no, I'm
No.
sure. When you had mentioned McDaniel
Hmm.
before, I was thinking of that couple.
Daniel Groves,
There you
that's
go.
his name.
There's the
And
Daniel.
yes, I can't remember her name. Jessica. Now I remember. Daniel and Jessica Groves. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, the
The
prosecutor there
closing.
was great too, wasn't she?
Yes, I was just about to say the closing argument from that prosecutor was great.
Hmm.
She held up the, they put the baby in a couple of those milk crate things.
Yes.
They put the baby's body in two of those and like put a bunch of heavy rocks in there and zip tied them together and put padlocks and wrapped it up in plastic wrap. They did all this elaborate stuff to hide the baby's body and throw it down in the well. And the
Yeah.
prosecutor, during closing arguments, held it up in the air and like screamed in the courtroom.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
very
because,
powerful.
yeah, they tried to say it was spur of the moment. It wasn't premeditated. It was during
Mm.
a drug fueled, insanity or whatever. And she held up this makeshift sort of casket that they made for the baby and
Yeah.
screamed about how it was well planned and not spur of the moment. It was great. She did a
Yeah.
great job.
And they sat back there and cried.
Hmm.
Yeah. The
They
audacity.
did.
Yeah. So let's see. So we have a couple more comments. Bill3 said, this girl was in charge of the graveyard shift at a restaurant. A few $1,000s went missing. I went into work the next day, and the manager said they want to question you at the police station. At the time, I was young and didn't know what happened. I wasn't read my rights. They just asked me to do a lie detector test. I said no. For what? They told me why, and I still said no. They thought I was involved because me and the chick had a fling going on, and she used to call me every night for a month. I said I was not involved and won't do a lie detector test. They said okay, and I went back to work. So I don't know if that was an interrogation. I really had no idea who did it. My mom always told me never agree to a lie detector because they're not accurate. She knew someone who did one and said they were lying, but really wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting that they would ask to do a lie detector test. Hey, you want to hook yourself up over here?
Well, yeah, I wonder if they really intended to do the test or they were just asking um, to see if they would refuse or not. Obviously, they did refuse and it didn't go any further.
Right.
So I don't know what the point of that would be. But they're not admissible in court. I guess it's just a
Exactly.
tool, like with Chris Watts, it's just a tool for like further interrogation,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. It
I
is.
assume it didn't, yeah, I assume it didn't go further because this person wasn't involved and the evidence showed that somewhere along the lines. And the person who actually did it was busted, or there wasn't any evidence to show that they were involved. Um,
Right. Yeah, exactly. And they said they were young too at the time.
mhm.
So maybe they were also counting on that. Going in front of law enforcement, maybe at a certain age, you'd be a little bit more nervous. I mean, you would be
Oh,
nervous, I think,
sure.
anytime, but certainly if that couldn't, maybe was your first time or something.
Hmm.
So definitely good on your mom for telling you not to say okay, because
Hmm.
certainly that could have opened some doors that weren't intended to be open, or would have been opened incorrectly. So that's definitely a good thing. But yeah, it is a tool. It's not it's not something that's going to convict you, clearly
Hmm.
because they don't allow that, but it does allow for further investigation. We've seen that with Lorne.
Hmm.
We've seen that with Chris Watts. We've seen it with others too, where clearly they were guilty. So,
Hmm.
so here's another one. We have Charlie Parker. Also, I have a story about interrogation that I'd like to share. Back in 2012, me and 4 other friends rented an apartment in the Greek Isle of Malea, I believe it's called, for 2 weeks during the summer to party and drink and all that good stuff. Unbeknownst to us, one of our friends was really depressed at the time and was having a lot of financial and gambling problems. This accumulated in him attempting suicide on the second night that we were there. We had got split up during the night in between bars, and it wasn't until we got back to the apartment that night that we found him. He'd taken an overdose and was still alive, but in a very serious condition, and was taken to the hospital immediately. The next morning, me and my 3 other friends were taken to the local police station and were all separately spoken to by a police officer. It wasn't an interrogation per se, but I was asked a number of questions regarding what happened and asked to give a statement on what had occurred the night before. It was difficult as the police officer spoke next to no English, so the interviews were done through an interpreter. None of us had any involvement in what happened to our friend, and we'd done everything we could to save him once we got back to the apartment, so we had nothing to hide. But I'll never forget the terror of being on the other side of a police interview and thinking about all the possibilities. Do they believe me? Do they think I had anything to do with this? What's going to happen if they don't believe me? All while not knowing if our friend was actually going to make it. I can only imagine the thoughts that must go through somebody's head when they sat across from a detective and they're guilty of a crime that they're being accused of. I remember having next to no function of my body whatsoever. I was so scared I was almost frozen into position in the chair while being questioned. It just amazes me how some people remain so calm and have the ability to lie so comfortably while being questioned by the police. Understandably, our situation was very different to normal police encounters, but even the idea that I could have somewhat been in trouble for this brought about a terror inside of me that I will never forget. Ultimately, the police believed us alongside the reality of what happened, and we were all let go. Our friends spent a week in the hospital and eventually made a full recovery. I'm sorry if this is a bit long-winded, but I thought I'd share it and just wanted to emphasize that you have to be a real psycho or special kind of fucked up to be in a situation with the police and remain so calm and calculated, especially when it's somebody like Jody who knew she was guilty and had all the evidence laid out in front of her, and she can just so casually deny and lie about it. It really does amaze me. And then they added here as well, the language barrier and being so far from home made the situation feel that much more uncomfortable, and the scariness of it all is actually hard to put into words. Um, let's see. But yeah, that feeling of being scared frozen is something I'll never forget. And I think that's why I find police interrogations so interesting. It's so hard to put myself into the mindset of the person being interrogated, knowing how scared and terrified I would be in that situation.
Yeah, they're right. And not only was Jody calm and able to sort of smoothly lie and just gab and chat about pointless things. There were times when she was laughing
Oh, yeah.
during the interrogation. And that, I mean, they're right. You would be frozen in fear. And any normal person. I mean, I can only imagine how scary it would be to be in another country and not speak the language
Yes.
and, you know, be away from your family, people who can help you, and you're trapped in a police interrogation room answering questions, even if you're
Absolutely.
innocent.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And not only not understanding the language, but also you may not understand the law either.
Hmm.
You may not understand all of the differences between what we have here or whatever country you're from, and going elsewhere. You may not understand what your rights are. Maybe you don't have any. It's going to depend, I guess, where you go. But that is certainly um, a very scary situation. I couldn't imagine being away from home and have people speaking a different language around me and have
Hmm.
no idea what's happening. And, all I know is that my friend is unwell and may not make it. You have
Hmm.
no idea what's going to happen. And here you are being questioned as if, hey, what did you do? Did you have something to do with us?
Hmm.
What if they don't believe you? So yeah, there's a
Right.
ton of questions that would be going through your head. And what's going to happen here? And like I said,
Hmm.
you don't know what your rights are exactly. What's going
I
to
think,
happen in that moment. So scary.
yeah, yeah, the only thing scarier than going to jail or prison would be going to jail or prison in another country
Yes.
where you don't speak the language. And
Mhm.
like you said, yeah, you don't know the law. They don't know if they broke some law somehow by,
Mhm.
who knows? So, God, that is very scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember that story of the boy? I think he may have either been in high school or college, but he went to Singapore. And I think
Mm,
perhaps he vandalized something. And this was back, I think, in the Clinton days. And it ended up being a big deal because their punishment for that was caning.
oh my God, no, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I remember the American who went to North Korea and like tried to take a poster, like a propaganda poster,
Mm-hmm.
and bring it back, and
Mm-hmm.
they were sentenced to some I don't know, I can't remember how much it was, but it was years and years and years of hard labor
Oh my
in like
gosh.
a horrible detention camp. And they
Yeah.
ended up, we finally got him back to the US. um Now I can't remember the story, but either we were in the process of getting him back to the US and he died right before he came back, or he died right after he came back.
Oh
But
my
he was
goodness.
like
Yeah.
literally worked to death
Yeah.
and tortured
Yeah.
for taking a poster. Things that we just
Yeah.
take for granted here in America, that we can get away with anything like that in
Yeah,
other countries.
sure. Right. And that was the thing with the boy with the caning was that, even himself, he's like, don't beat my ass, don't beat me. And they're like,
Hmm.
no, we're gonna beat you. Like
Right.
you should have known what you I mean, first of all, he vandalized something. I don't know if it was some type of graffiti or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
I know somebody who went there recently, and she said that it's spotless there. They don't even allow gum. You can't have chewing
Wow.
gum, and it's probably for that reason. They don't want it, stuck anywhere. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I do remember that was a big deal, and I think he did go through with the caning. I don't think he was able to get out of that by waving his American flag. So that was
Yeah,
interesting.
in their country. I mean,
Absolutely, yeah. I think that was the point. You know, you did it over here. Here's what your punishment is. So yeah,
yeah.
that's absolutely scary. So I'm glad that that ended up working out okay for our friend here.
Mm-hmm.
So our next one is from Lorne Hub, and they say, thankfully, I haven't been interrogated in this sense, but have had about 5 to 10 interrogations with police in minor things like speeding or drinking before 21. More often than not, they simply let me go when I play the honesty card. I definitely don't rule out being a white male, but plenty of friends of mine with the same profile have been cited and arrested for the same offenses after trying to play dumb or lie. You definitely wouldn't want to play this card when accused of a serious crime. It's interesting because it seems to work on the lower level stuff, just an observation. So that is interesting. I
Yeah.
think I think when it does come to the lower stuff like speeding, and probably drinking before 21, I'm not going to say I did that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Nope.
But certainly, I think telling the truth is actually going to help. Of course, you don't know the officer you're talking to. You don't know what kind of day they've had. You don't know what their stance is on dealing with certain situations. But hopefully, that is something that they will take into consideration. Of course, hopefully, you also don't have a warrant when they look you up.
Right.
But if
Yeah.
it's something that you're like, I can, they'll kind of let you go. If you are being truthful, just like this person said. And of course there's other factors too, like I just said. You don't know who you're talking to for that officer and
Mm-hmm.
what their thoughts are as well.
Yeah. Again, it's it's a tightrope walk because you nobody wants to admit to a crime. You're going to get in trouble for it, or you
Mhm.
could get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
But I could see how it would work. Nobody likes to be lied to, and the police are lied to a million times a day. So it's probably a little bit refreshing for somebody to be like, you know what, I fucked up
Yeah.
and I did something bad.
Right.
You caught me.
Right. Yeah,
So
exactly.
maybe,
Yeah. Do you know why I got pulled over? Yeah,
yes, I
I
do.
do.
Yes, I do, sir. And I'm real sorry.
I'm so sorry. Yeah,
Can you
exactly.
cut me a break?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, that is interesting though, and thankfully they didn't have to go through some serious interrogation.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all of the experiences that people have shared so far. Certainly, anyone's always welcome to drop a comment or send an email with any experiences they would like to share for anything that we've been discussing. I think that it creates an interesting discussion. Perhaps bringing up things that we hadn't thought of. Because we have never been interrogated before. So
Unfortunately, no, I
no, you
haven't.
look forward to it.
No,
Is
I
that what you're
don't. I
saying?
would be so scared.
I would be
Um,
too.
I do. I know one person who was convicted of a crime,
Okay.
and I asked him, and it was a pretty serious crime. It
Okay.
was nothing like murder or anything, but I mean, I guess I'll share. It was he he was selling drugs, but he sold them to an undercover police officer.
Okay.
But it got worse because he had no intention of actually selling the drugs to this person. He intended to rob them, which he did. So
Mm.
he went to make the drug deal. And then, as they were doing it, he took the money from the undercover police officer and then, like, hit him with a gun,
Oh my
like,
God.
pistol whipped him, I guess. Yeah, he got in very big trouble, as you
Yes.
can imagine. He
Yes.
served like 15 years.
Wow.
Recently got released, actually.
Okay.
Um, and out of curiosity, I asked him if he was interrogated by the police, and his response was, "You never talk to the police." I
Mm-hmm.
didn't say a word. You tell him you want a lawyer, you go to jail. You're not getting out. You can't talk your way out of it. Don't try.
Yeah.
You just accept the fact that you are going to jail, hope that you get bail, and demand an attorney. Don't answer a single question.
Yeah.
So that's advice from someone who served 15 years in prison.
Yeah. That seems to be the consensus for everybody, who's been in that situation. Certainly for things that are more serious than speeding or, having a little bit of alcohol when you're not supposed to. But yeah, I think that's an excellent lesson. And hopefully no one ever finds themselves in that position. I certainly hope I don't, and for you too.
I don't intend to.
You don't intend to, yeah.
No
Sometimes
plans
things
to at the
happen
moment.
when
Right.
you didn't even mean to. Okay, so
Never meant to do it. Right.
exactly. So we did receive a couple of emails too with just some questions that I thought were interesting to bring up here while we're talking. So this person says, I've listened to Jody's interrogation repeatedly and have so many questions. I'm more intrigued by Travis than her. I get the feeling he was kind of a dirty, dishonest person, not anywhere near someone like Lorne or Sokol. It seems like he was using the Mormon church for his own personal gains. I would like to be wrong seeing how he was a murder victim, but his business dealings and love life seem like they were predicated on taking advantage of gullible Mormons. I'm curious what you think of him. Am I wrong? Was he having sex with anyone else besides Jody? Would he have continued seeing Jody if he got married? Sorry for all the questions. Well, no sorries for questions. We love questions. But that is an interesting email. I think it's difficult to discuss a victim because they are unable to defend themselves, and all of the attention that we give, all of the things that we discuss have to do with Jody in this case, or whomever is on trial and ultimately found guilty. So yeah, it is difficult. I remember seeing a trial. I forget the girl's name. I tried to remember it not too long ago. It's probably been several years since this happened, but there was a girl who was murdered by somebody who lived in her neighborhood. And so this man went on trial. And the treatment that her parents took was really pretty disgusting up in court. They had somewhat of an alternative lifestyle where they were swingers, I guess is the best way to say. So they had, I don't know if you would call them parties, but they did have an unconventional sex life where, unfortunately for them, it was brought into court and put out for the entire public to hear because their daughter was murdered. And they were saying, well, look at you. Who were you bringing around? Instead of this upstanding citizen that lives near neighborhood who was found guilty, by the way. But it's, that they weren't murder victims, but they're victims as well. For being the family and being put on display in such, a vulnerable way. And so certainly for Travis, we're not going to, trash Travis. We don't know too much about him, I don't think. At least I don't. But I think it is an interesting question. What was their tie together? What was the thing that linked them together? And I think we can all agree that it's sex.
Yeah. I think the defense tried to paint him as sort of an abusive sexual deviant. And the prosecution tried to paint him as just a weak man, just weak when it came to sex. And I don't really think it was either thing necessarily. I think it was, well, first of all, he was raised Mormon, and there's a lot of sexual repression in that religion. I feel like, it's sinful to do these things.
Right.
So I think he got kind of, a little bit obsessed. Maybe not obsessed. I mean, he was a man in his 20s, full of testosterone, I'm sure. He wanted to have sex, as many young men do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just convenient to have sex with Jody. But the question, you do have to ask, why would he keep seeing her after she slashed his tires? He told a friend that he was scared of her
Mm-hmm.
because she was stalking him, but he let her in that night.
Oh,
He let her
yeah.
in and had sex with her and took pictures and filmed it. They were having a great time.
Yeah.
So it's complicated, and who knows what their relationship was like. I think he did use her for sex.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty clear. I think though she tried to pretend that she was okay with that most of the time. She clearly was not. She was very jealous,
Mm-hmm.
but I think she wanted to keep Travis no matter what. And she knew he wasn't going to marry her. She knew that he didn't even want to date her. And she was not okay with just being used as, a sex toy essentially, but she didn't want to let go of him. So she would put up with that until eventually, obviously, she
This
decided to
happened.
kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, but as far as like him taking advantage of other Mormons with the MLM thing, I think at that time, the MLM stuff was huge. Everybody was doing it. It was like a really big deal at that time. And you remember getting a million Facebook messages from girls that you went to school with that you
Oh
hadn't
my
talked to in years.
God. Yes. And they
And,
were
and
all
they're like,
blocked.
yeah, because I have a great opportunity for you. You're going to make so much money. And it wasn't as, now it's hated. Everybody knows MLMs are terrible and they're
Yeah.
predatory and you lose money. But back then, I don't think people had quite figured that out just yet.
Right.
So, and I think they were all doing it. That community of Mormons, they were all in that prepaid legal. Oh, sorry, they were
Whoops.
all in the prepaid legal stuff, and I don't know. They're taking advantage of each other. I think they're just trying to make a buck. Um,
Yeah, because I think that Ryan Burns was also
he
in
was.
prepaid legal. Yeah, so her
Hmm.
group up in Utah was also doing the same thing.
Hmm.
So yeah, um, I think with Travis, I read a little bit of the book that Chris and Sky Hughes wrote about him.
Oh.
Yeah, just a little bit. But they were talking about Travis as a person. Where did he come from? Who was he? And I didn't get all the way through it, but they talked about Travis and how he had it really hard when he was young. He did not come from a stable home. He had, I don't know how many brothers and sisters, but he had quite a few. But his parents were addicts. And so it was, he lived in a home where they didn't have a lot. And their parents obviously were struggling. But he did have a family member that he was very attached to, and that was his grandfather.
Hmm.
And so when they would go and visit, I think over the summers, it was kind of like a different world. They loved going to their grandparents because it was a warm home and they, had food and
Food.
it was clean. And his grandfather said to Travis that he was special. Like, there's something special about you. You have a gift for the world where this is not going to be your life. You're not going to end up having the same life as your parents. And I think that was a spark that he needed. And I think he held on to that through high school. And I think they had also mentioned that during high school, he kind of struggled a little bit too. He wasn't the most popular guy. He struggled with his body image and he didn't have great clothes because they didn't have money. And so I think that he then took what his grandfather was telling him and said, I'm going to create a life myself. And that's where he became so passionate about being a public speaker, a motivational coach, and getting involved in the prepaid legal. And it didn't necessarily have to be prepaid legal. It could have been any MLM. And like you said, they were really popular back then, whether it was fitness or skincare or prepaid legal, all kinds of things, and they're all pretty much the same in the sense that, you have to get people to be your downline. So when
Right.
they're selling, you're also selling. That's where the pyramid comes from. So most of the money is made from the people at the very top.
Hmm.
And that's something that I can see attracting Travis. Now, I don't know what his education is. I'm not sure if he went to college and things like that. But I can see him being attracted to that unlimited income potential. The sky is the limit. If you hustle, you can have anything you want. And so I think that was something that he was really into. And it
Hmm.
was really important for him. So he was able to get up on stage and talk about how great, this is. You can build the life that you want. And that's something that Jody mentioned in her letter. We'll get to that. But she mentioned how they were both, so passionate about building this amazing life. And I think that's the type of stuff that Travis was really drawn to. And even at his age, he had a large home in Mesa. It was like 4,000 square feet. He did have people living with him, but he was his own boss. And
Yeah,
that's
he had nice cars.
he had nice cars, yeah, and he wore flashy suits. And he was
Hmm.
just like,
Yes,
"Hey, I'm Travis," like
he did.
very outgoing. And so I think that even the trip to Cancun, that's such an MLM thing. It's
Hmm.
like this carrot that's thrown out there, like, "Hey, you can come hang out with us, the top earners." And, I think that for Travis, that's what he was looking to do. He wanted to be the top earner and he wanted to rub elbows with those people. Um, and so that trip would have been really important for him. I'm not sure if he went previously, but, you know, just hearing the things that I've heard about Travis and read about him, it's almost like you can definitely see that this type of a lifestyle would have been something really attractive to him. At least the portrayal of it,
Yes.
which I
Yep.
think is really important because he wasn't as successful, I think, as he was kind of flashing out there.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Jody even said that
Mm-hmm.
one of
Yeah.
the first things he said to her is, "You have to flash your money around here. You have to show these people that you're making money. You have to
Mm-hmm.
brag about stuff
Right.
to make it, they want to be where you are."
Yeah.
And yeah, she said it was very important for him to appear to be very successful, but he would struggle with money sometimes, which I imagine, um, with the MLM stuff. And maybe he lived a little bit above his means, but like you said, he had roommates.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I can see, and he did travel a lot. That was really important to him as well. But
Yes.
growing up with drug addicted parents, not even having food, let alone being able to go on vacations,
Mm-hmm.
I can see, like you said, how all that would be very, very attractive to him,
Mm-hmm.
and not have to work for somebody else. He's his own boss. He can flaunt his money. He gets
Mm-hmm.
pretty girls.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said before, I think that it was, I mean, maybe I could be wrong, but it seems like it was kind of a Mormon thing in that
Mm-hmm.
area. Jody even said, "It's the Mormon land of opportunity." And I'm sure that was a quote taken directly from Travis.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. She was good at memorizing.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so perhaps that was because it does sound like his group of friends, at least, were all intertwined, with this business. And
Hmm.
in his area where he was in Mesa, they would have been living together too because they had what are called singles wards.
Yep.
So they would have, and that's actually where Jody lived as well. She just lived in a female house
Hmm.
when she had gone there too.
Yeah, I think the community aspect of the church is really important and like tight
Mhm.
knit.
Sure.
Um, and they were all doing it.
Yeah,
That's
I agree. I agree.
just what they did.
So the question as well, was he having sex with anyone else besides Jody? I'm going to say yes.
Okay. I mean, not that was presented in court.
Mhm.
Um, he certainly could have been. I know he was trying to. If he wasn't,
Mhm.
it was just lack of opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, but I know they mentioned that he was sort of sending uh, dirty text messages with other women
Mhm.
or making plans to meet up with them.
Mhm.
But I don't know if he actually had at that point because we know he had his sights on Mimi, but
Yes.
she wasn't down with that. She wasn't about to. Apparently, she has very high standards when it comes to her religion, and
Mhm.
she wasn't going to cross that line. Um, so I doubt that she would have engaged in that from what I've heard about her.
Right.
But yeah, it
Yeah.
because Jody and Travis weren't dating. When she went to Mesa when she killed him, they
Mhm.
hadn't seen each other in months, right? In 4 months, I believe.
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah, it would have been 4 months because I think she said February was the last time. Yeah, because she left in March.
Yeah, and
So it was around
Jody
that time.
said during the time because they were only dating for I think when they were dating it was long distance like the whole time they dated. When they broke
Mhm.
up, she moved to Mesa,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
creepy and crazy. But that's when they started having sex more regularly because obviously they lived in the same city.
Mhm.
So, but they were not dating at that point, and I think Travis made it pretty clear like we're not dating and we don't talk about each other's dating life. Like if you're
Mhm.
seeing somebody, I don't know, just don't tell me. And I'm sure as hell not going to tell you if I'm seeing somebody,
Mhm.
which never works. That is not going to
No.
work. As we
No.
saw, Jody freaked out when she saw him kissing. I think it was
Uh-huh.
Lisa Andrews on the couch, or he was kissing some woman, and Jody went crazy over it.
Right.
Um, so, I mean, if he was sleeping with other women, that wasn't in the rules that he couldn't. They weren't dating.
They
They were
weren't
just
dating.
hooking
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, she was a booty call. She
Hmm.
would come over. He wasn't going out of his way to go
No.
and hang out with her. She when the coast was clear, and that was
Hmm.
something that she's said many times. When the coast was clear, she would skedaddle on over, and they would do their things.
Yeah, she knew what the situation was. Like I said, she tried to pretend she was okay with it
Mm-hmm.
just so she could keep him in whatever capacity,
Yeah.
but she clearly was not okay with it.
No,
And
she
I think
wasn't.
I think he was probably jealous too if he found out that she was like talking to other men.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that's reasonable or um, logical, it's not. And is it fair? No. But
Yeah.
I just think that's the way it was. I think they were both immature.
Oh,
And we know Jody
absolutely.
certainly was, but I
Yes.
think Travis was too.
Yeah, I think so too. And we have to think about how old they were at that time, as
Hmm.
well. And Travis, I think, was trying to uphold his reputation in the church and with his community, who were also doing the same thing. And he didn't want, somebody like Jody around because that was going to tarnish that, especially in the eyes of somebody like Mimi Hall, who
Right.
was,
He told,
pristine.
yeah, Jody told a story about one time when she was dropping Travis off, and his ex-girlfriend Deanna
Hmm.
was at his house or wherever he was being dropped off, and she said that he told her, "Don't even stop the car. Just I'll jump out while it's moving. I do not want her to see you." He
Hmm.
tried to keep Jody a secret, and she knew it.
Yeah.
And the question is if I mean, I can see how that would make anybody feel bad. I'm not defending Jody,
Sure.
she's a psychopath, but that would make anyone feel bad and feel degraded, especially um, how she clearly wanted to marry Travis, and he
Hmm.
did not think she was good enough to marry. He made
Hmm.
that very clear. And I'm sure in Jody's mind, she's thinking, I'm not good enough to marry, but I'm good enough to have sex with
Hmm.
and do all these, you know, crazy, dirty things with to stick lollipops in parts of my body. I'm good enough for that. So I
Yeah.
can understand why that might make you mad or make me feel bad about yourself.
Sure.
But end the relationship. Have some self-respect. Maybe Jody did think that having self-respect was killing Travis, that was showing her respect for herself. I deserve better than this, and I'm gonna kill you for it, I guess.
Yeah, you're not going to treat me like that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But
one of those ways.
he didn't have to treat her like that. She allowed it. You can
Certainly
cut
she did.
communication.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she moved
she
back
did.
to Northern California. I mean,
Hmm.
just cut it out. You know, she states many times that he persuaded me. He was asking
Yep.
me to come and see him. Even prior to her moving, you know, he would always call, he'd have a guilt trip on me, and then I would break down because I loved him.
Hmm.
You know, but yeah, just like you said, she was degrading herself in that situation. And, you know, unfortunately, I think it brought out a rage in her that
Yeah,
this all happened.
yeah, I agree. She mentioned during the trial that she felt like a prostitute
Mm-hmm.
at the end of one of their trips, one of their little vacations. She felt
Mm-hmm.
like a prostitute.
Yeah.
And you have to ask them, why did you keep going? Why did you stick around? Did you think he was going to learn to love you, or um, just think to himself, well, Mimi Hall doesn't want me. At least I have Jody. I mean, who would want to be somebody's second choice?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not me, and certainly not Jody. She was so jealous and possessive.
Oh,
That
she was
resentment.
very jealous. Oh, yeah. And she
Hmm.
tried really hard to just say, oh, yeah, she's a great girl. Everything I heard of, she's great. And you're
A lot of
like,
people,
if you if
yeah.
you had the chance, you'd kill her too.
Well, that's what a lot of people think because Jody bought a gun after
Mm-hmm.
she murdered Travis,
Mm-hmm.
and they when they arrested her, she was like in the process of moving. I think they caught her in her car with a bunch of her belongings, trying
They
to
did.
go somewhere.
Yeah, she had her car packed. She was going to
Hmm.
Monterey, I think.
And she had dyed her hair. Actually, I'm not
Hmm.
sure if she dyed her hair before her trip to Mesa or after. Um, but either way, her hair was dyed, and a lot of
Yeah.
people think that she bought that gun to go kill Mimi Hall.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's no other reason for her to have it.
Hmm. And she didn't learn that Mimi was not intending to go to Cancun with Travis until after she killed Travis, until his memorial service or something. I think she was talking to the bishop at their church,
Hmm.
and for some reason, the bishop told her that Travis had expressed to him that he was very interested in Mimi, but Mimi told him, I only want to be your friend. Oh, Mimi was going to go to Cancun, I'm sorry.
Yes.
But she wasn't, not in a romantic way. She made it very clear to Travis that she just wanted to be friends.
Yes.
And
And
that sort of broke Travis's heart.
yeah, definitely. You know, here's this woman that would have been perfect for him to marry, you know, under the eyes of their faith. You know, she was holding up those standards, and he would have
Well,
been a part of that marriage.
yeah, I wonder if her rejection made Travis feel like he wasn't good enough.
Oh,
And he,
definitely. I'm sure it
yeah.
did. I'm sure it
Hmm.
did. You know, because here he is, this woman that he really likes. I mean, Jody, of course, is really pissed off about it, but he gushes over her.
Hmm.
You know, this Mimi person, and for her to just
Yeah.
be like, "No, you're not good enough."
Apparently, he told Jody, he showed her pictures of Mimi on Facebook
Hmm.
or whatever, and said he thought that Mimi could be the one that he was going to marry.
Mm.
And I just cannot, maybe it did happen, I don't know, but Travis would have fucking big balls to say that to Jody. Look at this
Yeah.
pretty girl. We just had sex. I'm sure they had just gotten done having sex, and then he's like, "Hey, take a look at my laptop here. Look at this beautiful woman. I think she's the one that I'm going to marry."
Right.
That would not be wise.
That.
Gentlemen, don't do that.
No, please don't do that. No, absolutely. So the other question that was in this, would he have continued seeing Jody if he got married? What do you think?
Mm, if he married Mimi, no, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I don't think he would have kept seeing Jody. I mean, it's hard to say because, like you said, we focus on Jody and her personality and we sort of dissect her as a person. We don't know Travis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I, I'm gonna say no. I think Jody was. It was convenient. Um, she was someone to pass the time with,
Mm-hmm.
and if he had a wife, I that he, was permitted to have sex with within the bounds of his religion,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he would have had any need for Jody anymore.
What about all the things that she was willing to do that perhaps
Yeah.
Mimi or whomever wouldn't have necessarily been interested in? Maybe they
Hmm.
wouldn't have wanted to be a three-hold wonder.
Maybe not. I think though he was attracted to like the purity
Mm-hmm.
of somebody like Mimi, and I I believe he would. It wasn't all just for show. I don't think it was all just for how others would see him. The reason that he chose somebody like Mimi over somebody like Jody. I think he would take advantage of what Jody was willing to do with him,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. I think he was more attracted to the good girl vibe.
So maybe
I don't
he
know. I
would
just
have.
get the feeling he wouldn't have, but I could be wrong.
So maybe he was thinking more in terms of like all the things that Jody did. Oh yeah, that was fun. Been there, done that, and now I'm ready,
Hmm.
to be with this woman for the rest of my life, and we're going to be the perfect marriage.
I mean, I kind of think so because he was desperate to get married.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't just going out trying to hook up with as many women as he could.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure he was hooking up with women, but that's not what he wanted. He didn't want to be a bachelor and have all these crazy flings. He had Jody for that while he was looking for a good, like, devout wife
Sure.
to settle down with and have children with.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently in the Mormon church, once you hit 30, it's like unheard of to be
Yeah.
unmarried and not
Yeah.
have children.
Yeah, I could see that. Sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, and he certainly was. He certainly was in a hurry, and he really wanted to settle down. So you were talking about how there's the idea of sexual repression
Hmm.
with the young people prior to marriage. So I have a question for you.
Okay,
Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready, I
Okay,
think.
the answer should usually be no. That you're
Okay.
not ready, but my
Oh,
question
I thought you
is,
meant the answer to the question should be no. I'm like, oh dear.
do you know what soaking is?
I absolutely do. I
I can't believe it.
100% do. Yes, I know so much about it. I have a good friend who grew up
Okay.
in the area where Travis lived, and they told me all about it. Would you like me to describe it?
Please do.
Okay, so Mormons aren't allowed to have sex before marriage, as we know. So they created sort of many loopholes around that, but one such loophole is called soaking, and that, oh man, I volunteered to describe this.
You
It's on
sure
with me.
did.
Um, it, from what I understand, it it is almost sex. There is penetration, but no movement.
Mhm.
You soak it in there. You just put it in there and let it soak, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yes. And somehow that does not break the rules. But I've also heard that in certain universities that are predominantly uh, full of Mormons, they would engage in this soaking, and a friend would sort of rock the bed back and forth.
Hmm.
So they they're not doing it themselves. They can't help it that their friend is rocking the bed back and forth, and
No.
that is, causing some thrusting. So God can't be angry about that.
Correct.
It's not their fault.
Yes.
But yes, I have heard of soaking. It is one of the funniest things I've ever heard, because you imagine it, right? You've got a young man and a woman, and they are very desperate to have sex, but they're afraid that God is watching and their souls are in jeopardy. So he gets on top of her, slides on in there, and then just lays there like a dead fish on top of this
They're both
girl.
starfishing, basically.
Just laying there, like, don't move. And every time he starts to move a little bit, she's like, God's watching. Stop it. Hold still.
Stop
This is
it.
this is all you're gonna get. Stop it.
Well, that is fascinating. I wasn't prepared for
Yeah,
you
no,
to
I
know
knew
what
it.
that was.
Hmm.
Well,
I know lots of things.
let me tell you my soaking story. Well, it's not a personal story, okay? So you stop it right there.
Tell us your personal soaking story, too.
I don't have one. But
Okay,
I will tell
well,
you how I found out about this.
okay.
So there is a show on Amazon Prime called Jury Duty. And essentially, it's a show where they have a fake trial. They have a fake jury, a fake judge. Everything is fake except for one person. And he believes that he's on a jury. Okay, so this show is really good. So I encourage you to watch it if you can.
Okay.
But one of the characters there is Mormon. He's a young man, and they're sequestered during this trial. So they have no access to the outside world, no internet, nothing. And he has a girlfriend, and he was expecting to go on vacation with his girlfriend at some point. So he was able to get somebody from who works in the court to have access to her Instagram. And he was so just worried because he hasn't had contact with her or anything. And on Instagram, it kind of shows that she's hanging out with another guy. Okay.
Oh.
So he gets
Hmm.
upset. There's somebody on the jury as well who is a little flirtatious. She seems pretty willing, finds him cute and all that. So he basically wants to hook up, but they can't. They can only do this soaking.
Hmm.
So they arrange it, and the funny part was that they were going to ask this guy to jump up and down on the bed for
Yes.
them.
Oh my
Okay.
God. I can't.
So,
That's a real thing.
it's a real thing.
Wow.
Yes,
That's
I
amazing.
I was I thought it was just funny because I had
Uh-huh.
never heard of this before. I'm seeing this, and I thought it was just some scenario to see what this guy would do. Would he be willing to do it and all that? And so that's what they did. And he was like, I can do this, but we can't actually have sex, but we're gonna have sex.
Oh my God.
so so anyway, I really did think that this was fake
Hmm.
for the show. And I brought it up to my friend who had recommended this to me. And she said, no, it's real. And I said, get out.
Yeah,
That is
me
not
too.
real. It can't be. And she said, yes, it is. And she happened to have a lot of friends who were Mormon, and that was a real thing.
Hmm.
And so I thought, we know about the anal loophole, right?
Yes. Hmm.
But I had never heard of this one, and I was really curious. Um, what does the Mormon faith say about this? And through a very brief Google search, I'm absolutely not an expert, but they were saying basically there's no movement, there's no Humpty Dance between
Okay.
the two parties, okay?
Hmm.
Like you had mentioned, you're going to penetrate and you're going to sit there.
You're gonna, yeah.
And the other key thing is no orgasm.
What is the point then?
The
That sounds
point,
awful. Doesn't it sound even worse?
well, it does, but if that's all you can do,
But like you said, there's the anal loophole. Isn't that better?
I don't know.
Or you're not allowed, or can you use hands? Can you use mouths?
I
What are
don't
the
know.
rules? Is it in their doctrine? what you can put a penis into and move?
I don't know. I only looked up this one thing and was very curious. They don't say anything about anything else. So I'm not
Mm.
sure if that's just completely off the table or if you have to remain celibate in every way.
You would think that the penetration would be the no-no.
Listen,
Like once you've penetrated, go to town. You already sinned.
start,
You've broken it.
yeah,
You broke the
go
hymen.
crazy. Exactly. The way that I see it is basically having sex without saying you're having sex. You're having
Hmm.
sex. You know, that's how
You
I
are,
see
yes.
it. Now there obviously this is a loophole, right? They're just trying to still remain faithful, but kind of, try to find something where it's like, okay, well, if we don't do this and this, then it's all good. We're still
Yeah.
virgins.
I mean, it's funny, obviously, that's
Mhm.
hilarious,
Mhm.
but it's also sad. And it
Mhm.
shows you how strong that urge is. I mean, that's like
Mhm.
literally what we exist for,
Mhm.
is to reproduce.
Mhm.
That the drive is so strong that these poor kids are being told this very natural thing that you want to do. And just because it's natural doesn't mean it's good or okay or bad necessarily. But in this case, it's okay to have sex. You don't have to be married. It's okay. If God cared, then why would, I mean, I don't want to get into the whole religion debate, but
Sure. Yeah.
if God cared, then why did he make us want to have sex so badly that you're willing to have your friend jump on the bed while you lay on top of a girl motionless? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's sad that they are taught that these very natural feelings that everybody has are sinful and dirty, and God hates you for it, or God doesn't like it, or you're not going to get, the afterlife is going to be affected by when you put your penis into a girl and vice versa.
Yeah,
Personally, I don't like it.
there's plenty of religions, not just Mormonism, but
No, of course. Yeah.
who have that, you are to remain a virgin until marriage, and all of that. So, but certainly it does create a very difficult, on a human level, as um, somebody going through the young part of their life,
Hmm.
and wanting to experience these things, and having it be off the table and saying no. And I think that also can raise the desire too, that
Yeah.
they really want to do this. So they're going to get as close as possible. And in fact, in my opinion, soaking is having sex. You're just not completing
Yeah.
that. And I
You're
don't
just
know how you
cheating
can really
yourself.
stop it. I mean, what are you going to do if you can't stop?
Well,
Right?
you have to, or
I
you
guess.
are, and God is watching you
I
soak. So keep it to soaking. Don't
Imagine being the
thrust.
friend.
Yeah, I know.
Here's
He's like, I
here's
got you,
jumping.
bro. Best wingman ever.
It's a wingman. I would never
How
be a
awkward.
wingman. I'd be like, no, I'm
Never.
sorry, I'm not doing that. No,
How
you're gross.
uncomfortable and awkward. But I
Very,
mean,
very
I was
awkward.
I was raised Catholic, and
Mm-hmm.
they teach you the same thing. Like, God knows. God
Yeah.
knows what you're doing, and
Mm-hmm.
it is sinful to have sex before. It's even sinful to feel like you want to have sex. So
Mm-hmm.
you, especially when you're young, you have this incredible guilt over something that you can't control. You can't control those feelings, um, and you feel dirty. You feel it's dirty. It's sinful, and I don't know. I think it's sad that people feel
And I think
guilty
there's,
for something like that.
well, along with the guilt thing, I think one of the things that happens is they have to then talk to their bishop if
Hmm.
they break that, and that would be incredibly difficult and embarrassing, humiliating,
Humiliating.
and then
Yeah.
to be punished somehow. I don't know what the punishment is, but um, it would be equated to as well, being Catholic and going to confession and having to sit in
Hmm.
front of a priest and tell them that you did this. And
Conf- yeah. Imagine being a young teenage girl
mm-hmm,
and going to, and talking to your 70-year-old male priest
mm-hmm,
about these feelings you're having or these urges or something. It's
yeah,
awful.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not a fan. Um, and yes, of course, so those two religions are not um, the only ones who teach that. It's many religions. And it can create problems later in life. I think that being that level of like sexual repression can make you kind of weird. You know what I mean?
Could
Like
be.
when it comes to,
Could be.
yeah.
Yeah. And then the last question that we received is talking about, do you know how Jody was treated by the Mormons from her church? Was she accepted? Um, Mormons are very welcoming, from what this person is saying. And even if she had a bad reputation, they'd still be willing to give her a chance. So are you aware of how she was treated while she was in that community?
Um, not not really. I know she said she had made many Mormon friends. I think people were very nice to her,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure the people who knew what was going on with her and Travis behind the scenes were probably pretty judgy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sky Hughes and her husband, for example, I know they did not think what was going on was cool.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like I said, it's all about community. It seems like it's all about community in the Mormon church. So I think they were nice enough to her.
Yeah.
Were they inviting her out to dinner one on one? I don't think so. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think she ever really had a group of friends or like a best friend or, but I also think that's because she was focused 100% on Travis and wasn't interested in having friends unless they
Yeah.
were Travis's friends.
Yeah, that certainly sounds like what was happening when she was down there. She didn't have friends of her own, and where she was living in the female singles ward, and she was living there because there was a room available. It wasn't somebody that she knew or a friend. They just had a room available, and that's where she was living.
Well, you think that would be the time to make friends. You're living with these other girls in very close quarters. You'd think that they would form close friendships, but it doesn't seem like that happened.
Yeah, and like you said, all of her focus seemed to be on Travis, and that's likely what was happening. I don't think that she liked girls. I think she flat out didn't like them.
Totally. I think she felt very threatened by
Mm-hmm.
other girls. She was always in competition mode with them.
Yeah.
She preferred the attention that she got from men.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because I don't think during the whole trial they ever talked about a girlfriend that she had. They talked about her previous boyfriends, but when she had her sights on a man, all her focus was on him.
Yeah.
And her family, any other friends, anybody kind of got swept aside.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Um, and even when they were talking about her work experience as a server in a restaurant, she was focused on the men entirely.
Well, I mean, we saw it. Look the difference when she was talking to Detective Blaney from when she
Yep.
was talking to Detective Flores.
Yeah.
She was like a different person. No
Yeah.
giggles and smiles and no leaning towards Detective Blaney.
No.
Um,
No. She wanted Detective Flores to come back.
hmm
Yeah. Definitely. So the last thing that I thought we would talk about tonight is Jody's letter. So we've mentioned this before, but Jody had the nerve to write Travis's family an 18-page handwritten letter. So we had somebody record this for us, and we're actually going to put it on a different video. It's going to be its own video because I think that it can be appreciated best by hearing just it from the start to finish without interruption. So Callie Slime Bucket Witch Lady was nice enough to read this entire thing in a recording. So we will be putting that up as well along with this video. But just wanted to talk about a couple of points in here that I think are worth mentioning. So number one, she wrote this letter on July 28th. Now, I'm sure she had started writing this prior to this date. But what's significant about this date is that it's also Travis's birthday. And she mentions that in the letter, saying, "This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do." And even on Travis's birthday, I'm going to try and answer your questions because I'm sure you have a lot of them. So, in all of these 18 pages, there's a lot of trash, as you can imagine. Actually, it's all trash. And when I say, how could she have the nerve to write this letter, it's pretty disgusting. I can't imagine being a
Mhm.
family member or a friend of a murdered victim receiving a letter like this from the person who killed them. And basically, this is a letter of her exonerating herself and saying, I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I would
And
never.
trashing Travis in the meantime.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so, what she had said was that, she mentions how they've already told her all the evidence that they have, or not all the evidence, but they were saying, we've got you, Jody. We have everything that we need to convict you. And she's saying, in that case, I don't have anything to hold back anymore. So I'm just going to tell you what I know. And then also, she just goes through, I mean, you can imagine, she does like to ramble, right? We saw that in her interrogation. And she loves telling these stories of these wonderful times that she had with Travis. And she goes into these in her letter as well. She talks about how they met and how he essentially came on to her. He jumped right out, hey, I'm Travis, at one of the prepaid legal seminars. So that's how they met each other out in Vegas. So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say one of the most annoying things about Jody is that when 10 words will do, she'll use 40.
Yes, definitely. So it
She's
seems
very
like
wordy.
she's very wordy. And I think that between her and Travis, their relationship moved very, very fast. So they met in September 2006 and they decided to see each other quite a lot. And then he introduced her to the Mormon church, which I'm sure is something that he would have done pretty often. I think evangelizing is a part of what they do. I know I have people come to my door every so often from that church. So it doesn't surprise me that Travis would be working with Jody on this as well. And of course, because she's a chameleon, for every man that she has her sights on, she goes forward and she learns as much as she can about the Mormon faith and she gets baptized. In fact, Travis is the one who baptized her.
And do you remember the amount of time that passed between when she met Travis and he baptized her? I think it was a matter of weeks. I think it might have been like a month.
Yeah, it says that they met in September 2006 and then he baptized her November 26th,
Oh, okay.
2006. So
Alrighty.
it's still
Two
a
months then.
very, very short amount of time for her to make such a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. Um,
Yeah, that's how I mean, she had a previous boyfriend who was like into witchcraft or vampirism or
mhm,
something. And then there was one of her old boyfriends, she said they had ceased contact, but then she recontacted him because a man had come into her work and told her about the end times and the rapture was coming, and
mhm.
she just needed to warn him. She didn't call her mother or her family to tell
Oh
them,
no, she
hey,
doesn't care about them.
yeah, Jesus is coming back. She had to call her boyfriend, who she
Yeah,
hadn't talked to they'd been broken up for months or whatever.
right. Yeah, so I mean that's exactly it, right? She's jumping into whatever philosophy or whatever faith this person's going to follow. She goes head first into it. So
Hmm.
it's pretty intense for her to meet somebody and then 2 months later be deeply involved in their faith. That takes quite some time, I think, to not only learn it, that would be intimidating, especially not having any idea of what it is. I'm sure that maybe she had heard of it before, she would have heard it, but maybe she didn't know anything about it, or certainly wouldn't know what was all involved and what the Book of Mormon says and all of the different things that are involved with that. Sorry, my dog is growling.
Oh, that's okay. Well, she didn't believe any of it personally, though. She was in a relationship with Daryl. I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember his last name, but they were living together. They weren't married. She never had a problem with premarital sex before that. And then
Mm-hmm.
she met Travis and immediately went back home to Daryl and said, I'm thinking of becoming Mormon and I don't want to have sex anymore. I'm going to be celibate.
Mm.
That was not true. She just didn't want to have sex with Daryl. She was
Sure.
still sleeping with Travis.
Yes. Yes, definitely. So then they started a relationship officially February 2nd, 2007. And what's funny here is that she says things went really well despite one small hangup, Deanna Reed. And she's talking about this woman who is an ex of Travis's, and she's saying, I have no hostility toward her. She seems like a very nice girl. That's what Travis was saying. And I think it's amazing that he loved her and still cared about her feelings. But this is part of the letter, and you can see the theme throughout with many of her stories, is that Jody comes last, and she's okay with that. Travis came first. And in fact, she says specifically, it was then I realized that if Deanna was happy, Travis was happy, and then Jody was happy. Trash. Trash, absolute trash. She wouldn't handle that. She hated that Deanna was around. She's not a very nice girl. That's not something Jody would have been thinking about her. She would have hated her. Of
No.
course.
And
And
she trashed Deanna every chance she got.
mm-hmm,
She would talk about how Travis got Deanna a boob job, and which Jody has no room to talk. She got herself a boob job to look like Daryl's ex-wife.
mm-hmm,
Um, she said that Sky said, You're going to end up just like Deanna. In fact, they started calling her Deanna as an insult.
mm-hmm.
And I think Jody loved that. She loved to trash Deanna. You're right. She didn't think she was a nice girl. And it was great that Travis had loved her. I think she was terribly jealous.
Oh, of course. Of course. So, what's interesting is that they start dating February 2nd, 2007. And then in May, so she's living in Palm Desert, California, all of this time. And she couldn't afford her home anymore. So she says that Travis insisted that I move closer to him, which would make sense, right? If they're going to have a normal relationship. But
Mm-hmm.
what's interesting is that she says, although he expressed concern for Deanna's reaction, saying if she found out, it would be World War III. Could you imagine
Yeah,
somebody,
my boyfriend.
yeah, somebody having that type of a reaction, number one, and then also the person that you're dating be willing to accommodate that behavior if that's what's happening. Now, obviously,
Of
this is
course.
coming from Jody, but for your current boyfriend to say, "Oh yeah, this chick is around. She is going to lose it if she knows about you. So you basically don't exist. Okay, are you okay with that?"
Mm-hmm.
Why would that be a thing?
Right. That's what I mean when I say Jody tried to pretend that she was okay with that
Mm-hmm.
when she clearly wasn't, and nobody would be. I don't blame her
No,
for not
no,
being okay with it.
no. I don't blame it
But
either.
yeah, I think she knew, well, this is the rule. Otherwise, Travis is going to tell me to beat it.
But do you
So,
think that was really the rule, though?
I mean, I think Travis probably did. I think Travis was embarrassed
About
of
Jody.
his relationship with Jody. Yeah. I think that's why he didn't want people to know about her. He wanted to look like a good Mormon boy, and everybody knew. First of all, I think everybody knew Jody was a psycho and a weirdo and a stalker, and she was obsessed with Travis.
Even at the
There's,
beginning, though?
well, kind of, because there were lots of stories of Jody being very affectionate with Travis, just like hanging all over him, and he was really uncomfortable with her, like them being publicly affectionate.
Mm-hmm.
And she would especially do it around other women. She would just like do inappropriate things in their community,
Sure.
inappropriate things in front of other people. And um, I think it was mentioned to Travis, like, oh, she's she's weird. Like, tell her to get off you. That makes us all uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the sort of stalking, the craziness happened pretty early on. Her jealousy and always showing up uninvited.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think what they saw of Jody was craziness because, like I said, I thought Jody had said that a lot of their actual relationship, like when they were officially dating, as she says, which sounds very immature and juvenile,
Yeah.
that was long distance. That was like over the phone stuff.
Yes. Yeah, she was in California
Hmm.
at the time. Yeah,
So,
I think I remember from that Lifetime movie that we watched that there
hmm.
was a time when she was at Travis's house and his friends were there. They were like in the backyard by the pool.
Hmm.
And she like had one of his shirts on with no pants. And one of his
Hmm.
friends I think came in and he's like, "Okay."
Hmm.
So that may have been no, obviously this is just a movie. So who knows if that's exactly the way things played out, but that sounds to me like one of those situations where she's trying to establish ownership over him and
Hmm.
being
Exactly.
inappropriate at the same time.
Hmm.
Yeah. So let's see. So what's funny about this is so they're dating for a couple of months, and when she has to move out of her Palm Desert home, I guess her plan was supposed to be obviously to move closer to Mesa, but instead she goes to Big Sur, California, which is
Hmm.
I think north. It's kind of like the central by I want to say it's by Monterey actually, like central California.
Hmm.
I'm not exactly sure though, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, so she just goes and does that. They're supposed to be in a relationship, and she doesn't tell Travis. She's just like, "Yeah, I'm moving." It's a snap decision, and so Travis obviously is going to be upset by that, right?
Hmm.
She's moving further away, but she wasn't jealous of Deanna, so that's not the reason why. But that was definitely the reason why. It's
Yeah.
definitely the
No,
reason why.
Jody's never jealous of anything. If
No,
Travis was the one who was jealous, not
absolutely.
her.
So then in June 2007, they went to Daniels Summit, Utah. And just like you said before, they like to travel. They had this thing about, well, Travis had a thing about this book, A Thousand Places to See Before You Die. And so, of course, Jody gets on that bandwagon too, and she's all about the same things. So they go to this place, and she said, "I acted on an impulse and a gut feeling, doing something completely honest." And what she did was she looked at his phone and looked through his
Hmm.
text messages. Um, and she was saying, I had dealt with infidelity in the past, and I just had this feeling that I should look at his phone. And even though it's dishonest, I'm still feeling like I need to do this because I deserve to know. That was the justification that she gave herself. So she did,
Hmm.
and she's saying that she found text messages. And you had mentioned this before too, of flirtation via text with other women and making plans to get together and things like that. So she is obviously not going to be happy about that. But she said that she sat on that for a while. And at the end of that month, she decided we should just be friends. She broke the news to him that she looked over his text messages, and she said that he apologized and said that it was wrong what he was doing and all of that, which maybe that's true if this
Hmm.
is true. But you also looked at his phone,
Hmm.
which is crossing a major barrier for privacy. So I'm not sure it exactly went that way, but so they ended up breaking up on June 29th, 2007. And she said, "This was a very difficult decision for me because I loved him very much. It was especially difficult because he begged me to marry him that same day."
Oh, shut up. If if he even hinted at it, she would have. been ecstatic. That's what she wanted above all, was to marry Travis. I don't believe
Mm-hmm.
that for a second.
No, I don't
And
believe it either.
the big question in my mind right now is this: she is including the story in the letter that she wrote to Travis's family to explain what happened to him the day he died.
Uh,
Why is she telling them about looking through his phone and finding him cheating, essentially? Why is that important to the story at all?
well, she has a tendency to ramble.
Right, I
So,
know. But I mean that's what I mean when I say she's trashing Travis every chance she gets to
oh yeah.
in this letter to his grieving family. She's got to make sure they know that he was a cheater.
Yes. And that she's the victim here. You know,
Yeah, it's
she was a good
disgusting.
girlfriend. She was good to him, and she didn't mind that he had this allegedly psychotic ex-girlfriend around. So she was going to take the back seat because as long
Hmm.
as this other woman who's not in his life in that way anymore, as long as she's happy, then that's going to make Travis happy and then she can be happy too.
Yeah.
And that's all that she wants.
If if this letter was full of the story of self-defense, if that's the story she was using at this
Mhm.
point for Travis's death, then I could kind of maybe understand her saying, "Look, Travis was a cheater. He beat me up. It was self-defense. Like he treated me terribly."
Mhm.
But that's not the story she was going with. This was,
No.
I loved Travis so much I would never hurt him.
Mhm.
Strangers came in and killed him for no reason. I don't know why. I wish I could have been able to save him because he was a wonderful guy. He was also a cheater, a little bit,
Yeah.
but I loved him. It's just cruel to add it in there. And it's annoying. It's like, Jody, are you so full of yourself that you need to recount these stories to someone that
Yes.
about the story of you looking through his phone or you moving here? They want to know why you killed him. That's all.
Yeah, but she's trying to get there. She wants to tell him all this stuff first. And I think too she's trying to make their relationship seem more important and more substantial than it actually really was. Because these time frames that they have are
Mm-hmm.
very short. You know, the time that they were dating only a couple months. You know, the
Yeah.
time between things was only a couple months. Um, so they ended up breaking up. And so then, let's see what else we want to point out here. Um, so then she talks about how he persuaded her to move to Mesa anyway. So she's still in Big Sur, and you're right when you say that their entire relationship is elsewhere. They're not together. They weren't together
Mm-hmm.
until she moves to Mesa, and she's saying that he persuaded her to do that. Why would he do that if they're not in a
After they broke up.
relationship? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
She's
she's like,
full of shit.
oh, he's so persuasive. I folded and decided to go.
I think it's because she knows what a psycho it makes her look like if
Hmm.
she just says, I moved there because we broke up and I didn't want to break up. I wanted to be closer to him, so I
Hmm.
came anyway. So
Yeah.
she's got to make it sound like I was really hesitant about it, but he's so persuasive, and I didn't move there for Travis. She even said that to the detective. I didn't
Hmm.
move there for Travis. I moved there because of financial reasons.
Yes. Yep.
You moved away from your family who could help you for financial reasons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So then she moved back to California in March. And I think it was, again, financial reasons. Jody was not successful financially. She really struggled. She wasn't able to make this prepaid legal thing work. She didn't have Travis's personality. You know, I think she's shy in that way. And I think a lot of people would be. You know, I'm not a cold seller either. I'm not going to walk up to people and start telling them about a product that
No.
I'm selling. You know, do the MLM thing. Hey, I haven't talked to you in so long. I hope you're doing well. Let me tell you what I'm up to. It's amazing. You're going to love it. You know, that type of stuff that we were talking about earlier. So anyway, so a month before she was moving back in March 2008, she's saying that they decided to have this quote unquote come clean conversation. I don't know why that would be. Why is that necessary? But she's saying that it happened. And she's saying that they were going to talk about their dating. And she said that Travis would bring it up a couple of times over the course of time that she had lived in Arizona. And don't forget, they were hooking up during that time. So I think it's very possible that they each would have been interested in knowing what the other was doing in that regard. They were kind of attached to each other in that way, but certainly not officially. And so he said that pretty much the entire time that she was living in Arizona, he was dating Lisa Andrews. And of course, she's already going to know that because she's watched them sleep on the couch when they were on a date. So she definitely knew about that. And one of the things that she said here, and I'm going to read this, says, I'm not the type to have a crying emotional meltdown over something like that the way Deanna has in the past. So there you go with more Deanna trashing.
Yes, I remember that. Why include that? It's like she just can't help herself. She hates Deanna so much that she's got to trash her every chance she gets without realizing Jody suffers from Lawrence syndrome here. She has no self-awareness of how this makes her look.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure that perhaps Travis was really talking her up as well. I don't know. I think Deanna goes up on the stand, doesn't she?
She does. She does. I actually don't think I've watched her testimony though,
Okay.
actually.
Yeah.
But from what Jody said, Travis told Jody that Deanna was basically like the love of his life. He loved her very, very much.
Okay.
And I don't know why they broke up. I don't remember.
Okay. Well, maybe it'll
But
come
I'm
up
sure.
when we
Yeah.
listen to it. Yeah. But yeah, so he's talking about that, right? And then they go about how, you know, she's recounting how she's fine with it. She's happy for Travis. She's kind of joking like, "Oh, you know, Mimi Hall," because he's talking about Mimi at that point and how interested he is in her. And she's like, "Oh, well, you know, Travis, she's going to give in to your charms at some point. You know how you are. You're such a great guy." And making it sound like she's having this really supportive conversation and she's really happy for him and how happy he is in his pursuit of Mimi. And then things change when it's her turn. And she said that he had the absolute biggest meltdown. In fact, she said something here that says, he began punching himself in the head so hard that he injured his neck and his back and could barely turn his head from side to side. I was afraid to get near him, but I wanted him to stop. Travis never hit me in the face, but he bruised other parts of my body. So she's saying that he had a massive meltdown in hearing that she perhaps was dating or talking to, I would assume Ryan Burns came up in that conversation. But that he had such a meltdown that he began punching himself in the head.
Yeah, that sounds realistic. That sounds likely. If anyone would have such a meltdown, I'm sure it was her.
It would be
And
her, sure.
they were hooking up at this point. Anytime they were together, that's what they were doing. So she wants us to believe, and she wants anyone to believe, that she's hooking up with Travis, likely had just, you know, within 24 hours had sex with him. And then he's talking about his interest in Mimi Hall, and she's being supportive, saying, "Oh, you'll get her, Travis. Don't worry. I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy that you found the one you want to marry." While she's still not even fully dressed from them having sex. You know what I mean? And she is incredibly possessive of him. Whether it was love or not, who knows? But in her mind, it certainly was.
Yeah.
And Travis is the one who said we're not a couple. We're not officially dating. I truly believe that, because if Travis said I want to date you, I want to marry you, I think Jody would have jumped at that chance. So
100%. Yeah.
yeah, so he's gonna throw a big giant fit. She's talking to another man after he just told her that he wants to marry another woman.
Right. Right.
I don't
And
think
even
so.
before, when she broke up with him, supposedly, she said that he was begging her to marry him that day. But once the trust is gone, it's gone. It's not the same anymore. Are you serious,
Yeah,
Jody?
no. But she told Detective Flores that they didn't talk about marriage. She said Travis asked her to marry him, but in a joking way. He was never serious.
Yes.
She said that he would say something like, oh, she would do something that he admired or thought was impressive. And he'd
Hmm.
say, oh, marry me. Like, you're the perfect woman, marry me. But it was clearly a joke. Even Jody said she knew it was a joke. It was never
Yeah.
a real proposal.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, nice try.
And it's crazy here too that she's really insinuating that Travis beat her.
Hmm.
That he was physically abusive. And she talks about how, I know that it's typical for people in an abusive relationship for one to protect the abuser and not, want to get them in trouble or whatever. Again, just another example of some kind of disgusting accusation that she's making about Travis, and she's sending this to her family or his
And
family.
why? Right. And again, why is my
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
If her story was true and she never hurt Travis, she would never harm him, and some strangers came into his house and threatened to kill her and killed him, and that all happened just like she said it did, why is she telling his family that he put bruises on her? That,
yeah.
like I said, if she was doing the whole self-defense thing, of course I could
Mm-hmm.
see her saying he beat me, he put bruises on me,
Mm-hmm.
he attacked me, I had no choice.
Yeah,
But that's not what's happening here. She's trying to paint herself as a loving friend, at least at this point. She loved Travis so much. He was a light in this world, or whatever stupid shit she said about him.
yeah,
And by the way, he did bruise me, though. He cheated on me and bruised me. I'm really
yeah,
sorry for your loss, that you're grieving your brother or your grandson that you loved so much. But he was kind of I loved him, but he was kind of a scumbag. I mean,
yeah. He wasn't a
he
good
bruised me.
boyfriend at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're getting into June of 2008. So she's talking about how she had a trip planned to Southern California and Utah the week of June the 2nd through the 6th. So she's saying that Travis found out about this and then tried persuading me to come to Arizona instead to visit him. So another example of how she just couldn't stop herself from going toward him. He was the one who was persuading. If he didn't do that, then no problem. She would have just carried on with her trip without going to Arizona. But she couldn't stay away. So on Wednesday, June 4th, she finally gets there. And we're going to hear all about her trip during the trial, all the things that she did with the gas cans. That's an excellent
Hmm.
revelation. But yeah, so she gets there in the morning of Wednesday, June 4th. So she goes through this whole ridiculous, story. It's very, weighed down with just stupid details, like what
Yes.
exactly they were doing. So, but then eventually it gets to the part where she's talking about the two intruders, how Travis was in the shower. She was taking these Calvin Klein ad type photos of him, and then everything turned into a blur. And she has no idea where these two intruders came from, a man and a woman. She's able to give very little details, and she tells what's a comical story. It's not because obviously there's a tragic death involved with Travis, but the story that she tries to fabricate around it is so ridiculous. And she tells it here. Now, it's different slightly what she told Detective Flores when she finally says she's going to come clean. So she adds a few other details in here. And so I think one of the funny things that I thought that she mentioned in here, which I thought was really odd as well, was this woman who was this murderer. She said that she was shouting, quote unquote, shouting as quietly as possible.
Okay, hold on.
Yes.
So Jody, I can't remember. Jody was shouting as quietly as possible, or the
No,
woman was?
the
Oh,
woman.
the woman was shouting at her co-murderer
Yes.
as quietly as possible that they needed to kill Jody.
Yes.
Okay. Shouting as quietly as possible. All right.
Isn't that an interesting detail that she would
I
throw in
mean,
there?
it is such a Jody detail and so nonsensical.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, say like she was angrily whispering, we need to kill it. How do you shout as quietly as possible?
I don't know. I don't know. She knows she was there when it happened. So she's going to know about that. So I have
It
a little
also,
bit. Go ahead.
oh, sorry, through all the very tedious details that you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
where she talks about what they were watching on YouTube and what Travis ate for breakfast, like she remembers everything. She has
Yeah.
a very good memory
Yeah, she
up
does.
until those people come in and her memory suddenly turns to garbage and it's all
Sure.
very vague. And if she was smarter, she would be vague about everything or very detailed about everything. And obviously, it's harder to remember your lies when they're very, very detailed.
Yeah.
So that's why they're vague. But she demonstrates over and over again that her memory is annoyingly good. You know,
Mm-hmm.
one of those people who's going to tell you every little detail down to what color their nails were painted and it just stupid stuff that nobody cares about. We don't want to know.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to the important part, she just can't remember.
No, it's all a blur. It's all a blur. So I was thinking about this shouting as quietly as possible. And I was thinking about how, now obviously the police would have canvassed the neighborhood. They would have asked the people living on either side of him if they heard anything. And so I took a look at Travis's house. Let's get rid of Jody there. So here's a photo of Travis's home. Now this photo was taken in 2011. I wasn't able to find something soon, prior to then. But this is what we have, and I'm assuming it's probably pretty similar.
Hmm.
So he's living in a large home. It looks like stucco construction, and the homes on the either side, they're very close together. But as you can see, the home on the right side doesn't have any windows except for there's one toward the back. And then also on the left side, the windows, there's just a couple, and they're on the first floor. So Travis was obviously killed on the second floor. And also where he was killed, that hallway, the bathroom, there's no windows there.
Hmm.
And so I think that she's trying to explain how nobody would have heard anything. She's talking about this giant commotion that's happening with 4 people, and there's yelling and all that kind of stuff, but nobody would have heard anything. Now, this was also in June, so in Arizona, it would be hot, and I looked up the temperature, and it's about 100 degrees. So having this happen late in the afternoon when it's going to be at its hottest, and also these homes have 2 stories. So clearly upstairs is going to be warmer. So it's very likely that they would have had the air conditioning running and the windows would have been closed anyway. So unless somebody happened to be in a perfect earshot, like right outside that home, or something, perhaps they would have heard something. But, it's also more likely that either nobody was around yet, because they're thinking around 5:30 was when he was killed. That's when the photos were taken. of the crime happening, but maybe people weren't home yet. And then also you have just what I was explaining. These are large homes built in stucco or brick, and they're in the interior of the home, where there's not windows. And also the other homes don't have windows either. So,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, she didn't even need to make up a ridiculous story about why nothing was heard.
Right, but it's funny she did about
She
the
did.
shouting as quietly as possible. Who
But
cares?
she also said Travis was screaming. He
She
was
did.
screaming.
Yeah.
Was he screaming as quietly as possible?
Yes. She
Okay.
just forgot to say that.
Uh-huh.
So obviously,
He
yeah.
didn't want to like worry his neighbors, so he
He
was trying to keep it down.
Right, exactly. He didn't want to do that. So we need to put crying Jody back up on the screen there, because that's who's writing this letter, okay?
Hmm.
I want to just let you know. It's not this Jody. Do you see her? That's not the one that's writing the letter.
I can't see
You
the screen. It's
can't?
from,
Oh, it's
no.
the one you've seen this picture before. But
Is
it's
it
go ahead.
is it her smirking mugshot?
No, I should have
Oh,
I
okay.
should have grabbed that one. But
Yeah.
we'll get to that in a second. But no, it's
Okay.
just one of her posing. She's got her arms up. And she's got her
Okay.
blonde hair. She has her hands in her hair, and she's, doing her modeling. So
Hmm.
you've seen this before.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a little bit of a contrast between that and then also crying Jody in trial with her glasses and her odd hairstyle.
Her weird wispy bangs.
Yeah, her
She has
bangs. Yeah.
I saw a comment years ago and it cracked me up. She had like three bangs, like three tiny wispy strands of hair in the
Mm-hmm.
front. And then
Yeah.
she would do these sort of like very juvenile hairstyles where she'd like clip it back.
Yeah, using
Um,
barrettes.
yes, like a child.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was interesting to take a look at. Be like, this is Jody before, where she's very attractive. And then
Hmm.
what she wanted to present at trial was not the same woman. Just like you said, she has these juvenile hairstyles, make her look innocent. She's got her glasses on, kind of mousy, I guess would
Hmm.
be a description of her. Dressed very modestly. Couldn't possibly be the one. And she speaks in a rather soft voice anyway, but she's going to be presenting, and we're going to see that when she's up on the stand for many, many days.
Hmm.
The way that she speaks. Yeah.
Yeah, prison probably doesn't agree with most people. It doesn't do much for your appearance, but she changed a lot. If you look at
Mm-hmm.
her mugshot, she was, and she did an interview with 48 Hours, I believe, when she was in the jail.
Mm-hmm.
And she was bubbly. She was very pretty,
Yep.
actually.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see her up on trial, she looked like she aged a lot. Her face looked very, like, drawn, I guess
Yeah.
would be the word.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, her face just looked longer and like um, drawn is the only word I can think to describe it. So I mean, like I said, prison probably isn't gonna do much for most people's looks, but also her personality totally changed. She was all bubbly and smiles during her interview and
Yeah.
smiling in her mugshot, and then she's up on the stand pretending to cry through her nose,
Yeah.
which is something interesting.
Right.
You never see a single tear come from Jodi's eyes when she's crying. She cries through her nose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So now she's going through her story again in this letter, and she's describing, these ridiculous circumstances that never happened. But one of the things I thought was interesting, not only the shouting quietly, they were very polite in that house when a murder was happening, but she was talking about how she left. And I thought this was interesting because, again, this is so disrespectful to the family of a victim. So she talks about how her car is parked in the driveway. And again, if we look at Travis's house, let's see. So Travis's house, he has a 3-car garage. and the garage on the left side is a single car garage, and it's right next to the entrance of the home. So for her to get out, I could see how she could get out without anybody seeing her if they happen to be in the area for whatever reason. And she does mention in her letter that there were 2 girls playing outside and running down the road. Who knows if that was true? That's so weird.
Yeah.
But the front door is right next to the driveway, so there's not a long walk. And also, it's covered. The entryway's covered, and it's sealed off with the view would be obstructed by a couple of columns. And then there's also landscaping in the front. There's a tree that's there. I would have to say it's probably the same tree that's always been there. It doesn't look, new. It looks like it's probably been there. So, she could have just dashed out the door and gone right into her car without anybody really seeing her.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Let's put Jody crying back up there again, because I just feel like that's who's writing this letter, so we may as well put her up there. But yeah, she talks about how she left. So she gets into her car. She kept her eye on the front door. She backed out of the driveway, and then she says in parentheses, "Awful, I know. I didn't look as I backed out. I probably should have never been driving in the kind of state I was in. It wasn't heightened awareness. It was blind confusion." So she's talking about her safety driving.
That's what she's going to take responsibility for.
Yes.
Driving in a state that she shouldn't have been.
Mm-hmm.
And not looking behind her when she backed out.
Right, exactly. And then she said that, the front door never opened because they were chasing her, or she thought they were going to chase her as she left. But they didn't have to chase her because they knew her name and they memorized her parents' address. So, you can run away. That's fine.
Well, and they did try to shoot her.
Yes.
And it didn't work. And everybody knows you get one try to kill someone.
You sure do. But then how did it work for Travis then?
I don't know. They must have broken after they shot Travis. Maybe they only had one bullet and they didn't have another method to kill her, even though they did. They had a knife. They didn't want to make a big mess, I guess. So it was shoot her or nothing. They couldn't strangle her or literally do anything. It was shooting was the only option. And once it didn't work, they were like, shit, I guess we blew it.
Yeah,
you
bye.
Can go.
Yeah, you can go. Exactly.
Don't tell anyone, okay?
Right.
You promise?
Yes.
Because if you do, I know where your grandmother lives because it's on your registration. And I'll get her. So
yeah, you have one chance to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, you have one chance.
Yeah.
I love that quote in the it's so cheesy. It's such a cheesy movie line. You have one chance.
Yeah, I'll give you one chance or else you'll get it. And your little dog too.
Right.
That's what it's like.
Doggy boy.
Doggy boy. We have Doggy Boy. We've been holding him for the last 10 years. And then I think, this whole letter is disrespectful, right? But this one section just really stands out to me. So she left. She was in such a state of confusion. She had poor driving skills. She was disregarding safety as she flew out of the driveway. And here's what she said. "My phone was dead. And as cowardly as this is, I probably wouldn't have called for help if I could have."
Mm-hmm.
I was racked with fear. I knew that if they were capable of doing what I'd seen them do, then they were capable of carrying out their threats. Oh my God.
What did she see them do? Because when she told Flores, she didn't see anything. She just heard it. And Travis was still alive when she left. He was conscious.
Mm-hmm.
So what did she see them do to Travis? She wasn't even sure. She said she thinks he was shot, but she wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, they hadn't stabbed Travis 30 times or whatever the number was that she stabbed him. They hadn't cut his throat.
Mm-hmm.
They hadn't done any of that. According to her, she left Travis like on his hands and knees in the hallway.
Right.
And she wasn't even sure what had happened to him.
No. She just knew that he couldn't walk and she had to get out of there. she was going to save her own ass and her
Mm-hmm.
family from, this phantom who was going to come and get them if she opened her mouth. This person that she loves so much
Mm-hmm.
is in trouble. And you're like,
And
yeah, I wouldn't have gone for help if I
And
could
she
have. So,
wouldn't have called for help if she could have. If
uh-huh.
her cell phone had been charged, she wouldn't
Hmm.
have. She could have saved his life, but she was willing to take that. That's what she's guilty of, being a coward.
Hmm.
I could have saved his life, but I didn't. That's all I did wrong. Because
Yeah,
that's far less, I mean, that's still horrible, but it's far less, bad criminally than murdering him herself.
right.
Um, but it's ridiculous. Who would do that? She had the chance to call police. That she could have run to the neighbor's house, banged on the door, used their phone. They were in the house with Travis, killing him,
I know.
according to her.
I know. And he can't move, according to her, too.
Yeah,
Oh, my God.
yeah. She's just an idiot, and
Yeah.
the story is so bad.
It's so bad. And she's telling this to his family.
Hmm.
Like, you're supposed to be like, wow, Jody, I'm so sorry you went through all that.
Yes, you're the victim here too, you
Mm-hmm.
poor thing.
Yeah.
When even pretend this was the truth. I would kick her ass if I was his family.
Mm-hmm.
I would beat the life out of her. You left my brother, my son, my grandson, my loved one to die because you were scared. Are
Yeah.
you stupid? You are
Right.
stupid
Yeah.
because there was nothing to be scared of. If you'd called the police immediately, how
I
are these
know.
people going to go after your family if they are arrested?
Right.
You dummy.
I know. So then you had mentioned her mugshot before. So she talks about her mugshot here. She's saying, yeah, I know there were some comments made about my smile in my mugshot, which I was expecting. It was cocky,
Hmm.
but so was Travis. And anyone
I
who knew Travis well enough knows he was cocky and also knew how happy he was and how positive he was.
What does that have to do with his murder? What does any of that have to do with what happened? Okay, Travis was cocky, so you smiled in your mugshot when you're accused of murdering him in cold blood?
Yeah, it was kind of like a tribute to him. This is what he would
Yes.
have done.
What would Travis do? He would smile as he's being booked for first-degree murder. I don't think he would. I don't think any sane person would, you psychopath. I think it's as simple as Jody's an idiot. She saw a camera, so she smiled. I
A
think it's as
hundred
simple as that.
percent. Yes. Yeah, because
And
even when she's going through all of this, whether it's an interview or interrogation, she's worried about how she looks.
hmm
Yeah. So she's
yeah,
not.
she wanted her makeup. She
Yeah.
wanted the detective to give her a purse so she could do her makeup
And
before
she's
her
playing with her hair
mugshot.
all the time, fixing it
Yes.
up. Yeah.
She even said when the detectives left the room, she said, "Gosh, you could have at least done your makeup, Jody," to herself.
Yeah.
That was her priority at the time.
Yes, that's her priority.
And then she brings it up to his family. Why is that important? Why is your mugshot important to, again, it's just such a lack of self-awareness and empathy. Put yourself in the position of the victim's family members. Do you think they give a single shit about your mugshot and what you looked like in it? But it's all about the perception. She was concerned about how people were perceiving her because there were comments about it on the internet. So she wanted to clear that up in the most
Yeah.
ridiculous way.
Yeah, and it's likely that his family was also commenting on the internet.
I'm sure. Like, look at
Yeah.
this psychopath
Yeah.
smiling.
Yep, exactly. So she had to explain that. She had to explain it away. Oh my gosh. So
It
anyway, go
it
ahead.
would have she would have looked better and just more human if she said, you know, I'm used to smiling for the camera. I know it was stupid. I regretted it as soon as I did it, but it was
Hmm.
just a reflex. You see a camera, you smile.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah. No, she had to make it about Travis and be like a tribute.
I
That's what
was
he would have
thinking,
wanted.
what would Travis do right now? He would say cheese. She's so cheesy.
I know she is.
I
She
hate
is.
her.
And some of the things that she says, she is really cheesy. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Um, so yeah, she's basically worried about her own family. She's like, yeah, well, I know Travis was alive when I left, but I'm worried about my brother and my my dad. And what I
Yeah.
thought was interesting about that too is she specifically said, I have my mom and my sister. Does she have two sisters?
I thought just one, just
One.
Angela.
Okay. Does she have two brothers then?
Mm, I only remember her talking about her
Okay.
little brother and little sister, but she just might not
Okay.
have mentioned them.
Yeah, because I think in here, and I can't find all this mess. I don't know
Hmm.
where she specifically said it, but she does say, I have my mom, I have my sister, a brother, maybe another brother or sister. I can't remember.
Hmm.
But all I kept thinking was my dad and my younger brother. About these people, these two murderers that are going to come and get her family. She has her family with her mom and everybody, but she's mostly concerned about her younger brother and her dad.
Well, that's interesting because she said, I know she had a bad relationship with her mother.
Yes.
Um, and she said that her mother used to beat her with a wooden spoon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but she also said her dad abused her much more severely than with a wooden spoon. I think she talked about him like throwing her across the room or something, slapping her across the face really hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. Again, it's with Travis. I loved him. He beat me, but I loved him so much. My
Mm-hmm.
mom and dad, they abused me. They beat me, but I loved them so much.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So now to finish off the letter, she wants to get spiritual. So she says, are you disgusted over there?
Yes,
Okay.
shut up. How dare you? And I know what she says here, which is
Uh,
what is making me angry, but I'll let you
okay.
read it or let you
Okay.
summarize it.
All right. Well, I'll read it for your benefit. Okay.
Yeah,
So you can
okay.
hear every word.
Okay.
Travis lives. He's not far, and it won't be long before you can see him again. One day, all of our questions will be answered. I just hope you can all find peace. My prayers are with you and have been since the inception of this nightmare, and so are the prayers of many. With the deepest sympathy and humble sincerity, Jody and Arias. And then she includes a verse, of course, from the Bible. And your sorrow shall be turned into joy. John 16:20. Is that beautiful or what?
Oh, it it's so infuriating that she added that. She said something similar to the detective during her interrogation. She said, because she was pretending to cry about Travis's life being over. And then she said, I know he's fine. I know
Yeah.
he's doing okay
Yes.
in heaven. So it's almost like he's in heaven with our heavenly Father.
Mm-hmm.
He's in the celestial afterlife or whatever the Mormons believe. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's doing good. And someday we're going to see him again. So don't feel sad. It's
Yeah.
okay. God's going to answer our prayers. My prayers are with you. Your sadness will turn to joy. So I know you're feeling sad right now that I brutally murdered your loved one, but when you die as well and you're reunited, you're going to be so happy.
Yes.
So don't worry.
And it's
Don't worry.
fine. It's totally fine. It's
Yeah,
fine.
Travis is doing fine.
Yeah.
He's doing okay. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard
It
in
is.
my
I
life.
know.
And
I
if
know.
for it also shows Jody's insincerity. I mean, we know that she's insincere about her faith and she doesn't have it. She's just full of shit. Because if you truly believed that God knows everything and you're going to be judged when you die, I would be horrified if you know what I'm saying? Like if
Yeah.
I killed someone in cold blood and I could lie to everybody in the world, even if they believed me and I got away with it, but I truly believed that God knew the truth and my like eternal soul was at risk here,
Yeah.
I'd be scared to death.
I know. I know.
So she didn't believe any of it. It was all just, a little bird squawking,
Yeah.
repeating shit that other people had said.
Yeah, and it served her purpose.
Hmm.
She was wanting to appear to be a certain way, even though she wasn't perfect. like she says in her letter. But ultimately, this is her faith, and she wants to be the best that she can be according to the faith. And she would never hurt Travis.
Well, it's like when she pretends to care about the premarital sex thing. She says, we both struggled with that. We spoke to our bishop about it, and we knew that it wasn't healthy spiritually. She'd never cared about that. She kept doing it. She was
Yeah.
pretending to care. And there's even, do you remember the recorded phone call?
Oh,
The
yeah.
phone sex call in court? Right. How could you forget? She even says in that call, I don't regret what we're doing. The only regret I have is that we didn't start doing it sooner. And she gave another really cheesy line and said, if it's wrong, I don't want to be right, or something like that. So she wasn't bothered at all by
No.
the, the religious aspect of it.
Right.
She wanted to look like Mimi Hall. She wanted people to look at her like they looked at Mimi Hall, and how much respect they had for her because of her conviction and her principles, and how devout she was, or how serious she took her faith.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, I wasn't sure how long this video is going to be, but it's 2.5 hours.
Well, she's kind of like a Lorne in the sense that, like, we can talk about Lorne for the rest of our lives because he has given us so much material to go over.
Yeah.
In so many different forms. It's the same with Jody. We have this letter, we have her manifesto, we have her whole damn trial, the interrogation, her interviews, her journals. God, what else? Just tons of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Because she's so willing to share all this stuff, and every bit of it is garbage. It's ridiculous, and it just gives you an insight into what a psychopath she is.
I can't get that line out of my head.
Which one?
If this is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Yeah,
That's awful.
she's cheesy and awful.
It's
She
very
gets
cheesy.
so many of them.
Yeah.
But some of my favorites were during the story when she was first telling it to the detective. There's one line, just like with Lauren, we love to talk about our favorite one-liners.
Yes.
Jody's got a few too. She's telling the detective what happened, and she went through the whole thing about the masked intruders and how they threatened to kill her after they did whatever to Travis. And then she starts crying and she says, I chickened out like a little bitch.
Oh
I
gosh.
ran. I love that one.
That's pretty good.
And all the dialogue from the murderers was very cheesy,
It
taken out of
was.
movies. They were
Yeah.
talking to each other. They said, we gotta kill her. She's gonna rat us off. The phrase is not rat us off. It would be rat us out.
Yes.
And I think a criminal would know that.
Yes.
But Jody phrased it in this really weird, stupid way. Oh, and when she said, the detective asked her, did they say anything to you when they first got there? Because she claimed that she was an element of surprise, even though her car was loud and proud in his
Oh
driveway.
yeah, definitely.
Somehow, these murderers missed the car in the driveway, so they were shocked by her, and they looked at her and said, "You must be that bitch from California."
And then how many times did that guy have to say, that's not what we're
That's
here
not what we're
for?
here for. Yeah, that's not what we're here for. Shut up. No, that's not what we're here for. That's how she described their dialogue.
Yeah,
Shut
no,
up.
no, no,
No.
no. Right. Yes, you're right. No, 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 no.
I love that part of the interrogation. It's
It
so
is.
bad.
It is. It is. It's bad, but it's fascinating.
Hmm.
It's fascinating.
I also love, I know we've been going forever, but I also love how it wasn't the man who wanted to kill her. I know we've talked about this before, but
Yes.
it was the girl who wanted to kill her. She was probably
Of
jealous
course.
of Jody.
Jody's a lot prettier than this
Right.
woman.
And
And that's what this woman was thinking. Wow, she is really pretty. I bet my boyfriend here, my murder accomplice boyfriend, has a crush on her. That's why he doesn't want to kill her.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not what we're here for. We don't kill pretty girls. We only kill cheaters like Travis.
Yeah, exactly. And whatever he did, she doesn't know what he did to have these two people come after him. I mean, maybe he owed them money or something. He wasn't great with money.
He
So,
wasn't.
and he would get emailed solicitations.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the murderers were emailing him constantly,
Yes.
like trying to get him to join their MLM. And when he refused, they came and killed him.
They would get very angry because Travis would call them out.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So either you're going to get evil MLM murderers or the mayor of Italy in your inbox.
Yeah. I mean, at least come up with something like Travis was involved with these shady dudes and he was a gambler or he owed somebody money. Travis did drugs. Nobody knew about it, but he did drugs
He
and
did, yeah.
I mean, she had no problem saying that he was a pedophile without any form of evidence. Why not say he was like selling drugs or something
I
and he
know.
got
And he got
no,
over his head. Yeah.
no, for no reason. They came in, decided to kill him, and let her go after stomping on her feet. That was really mean.
That was really mean. So you guys are
Hmm.
going to hear that in the letter. I don't think that's what she told Detective Flores, though.
Nope. Mm-mm.
So this is in the letter. So you're going to hear it when Callie reads it for us. But yeah, she I don't know. They were just like stomping each other's feet, I guess. And,
Just
Jody didn't have her
dancing.
shoes. Yeah, exactly. Like this woman who has a knife in her hand
Hmm.
cannot get her arms out of Jody's grasp.
Very
So
strong.
she has nothing else to do but stomp on her hands. Or, I'm
Jody
sorry, her
did
feet.
on her feet, and they were bare feet. The woman had a
They were
clear
bare feet.
advantage
Yes.
because she was wearing shoes.
Yep.
Um, and Jody did take a self-defense class or two,
She did.
um, and she learned how to defend herself against a knife-wielding woman,
Yep.
but she forgot to put her shoes on, so her
She
toe was
forgot.
bruised.
It was, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was bruised because this woman was playing whack-a-mole with
Yeah.
her feet. And Jody was able to dodge it some because she didn't get her feet completely annihilated, but she
If
did
anyone
land it a
ever,
couple times.
yeah, a couple. If somebody tries to kill me and they have a knife,
Yeah.
I genuinely hope that they forget they have the knife in their hand and just stomp on my foot a couple times.
Well, you're going to
I
be
count
strong
myself lucky.
enough to hold their arms
Hmm.
up
I,
so that they
yeah,
can't get you with the knife.
I'll take a self-defense class and
Take a
learn how
self
to do
defense
that.
class. You're going to be able to. That's the first thing that they teach.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So,
Saved her life.
any other remarks that you would like to add?
Mm, um,
There's so
I
much,
think,
isn't there?
yeah, no, there totally is. The only thing and we'll get to this,
Hmm.
but it's way down the line. It's after Jody is sentenced. But we're speaking about the audacity of her writing this letter to his
Hmm.
family.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think that is the best word to describe what it would take to write this to a victim's family,
Yeah.
to your victim's family.
Hmm.
And she exhibited that again after sentencing when she, well, first of all, claimed herself to be a survivor of domestic violence,
Hmm.
which I mean, she literally like made a T-shirt that said "survivor,"
That's
which was
right. I remember
disgusting.
that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh,
So,
gosh.
I mean, and there, again, we'll get to this, but the audacity to tell his family that, oh, actually, I just remembered, I do remember cutting his throat, and he was conscious and alive
Yes.
at the time.
Yeah. That blew me away
Hmm.
when I heard that. I couldn't believe it. It's like, why can't you just go away?
Just go away. She had to be as cruel as possible. At that point, she had nothing to lose. She had already been sentenced. And she just wanted to hurt his family
Hmm.
for no reason.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
just to be a psycho.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, well, that's what she is. So,
Mm-hmm.
oh my goodness. All right. Well, I wasn't sure how long we were going to go. I was like, maybe it'll be like an hour. Look at us. Well,
Yeah,
we have a
well.
lot more to get to.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be going through her trial. Now, before we go through her trial, we have something that we're going to be doing in between. I'm not going to announce that right now, but you guys will see it in the next video.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So until then, everyone, take care.